Hello everybody and welcome back to some more Fallout Equestria. Oh man. Hold on. I did change screens because I was reading this on like my side monitor, which isn't the nicest on my neck, so I just kind of made it on my main one. So hopefully it's just as fine. Okay, let's see. There, boop. Do that. We'll do it right there. That seems nice. That looks okay. Gosh, crud is always getting in my eyes right as soon as I start this. Gosh dang. Itch. Okay. Okay. Okie Okay, chapter 24. Dances of Light and Shadow. Oh, dang. What a strong way to start the story off. I can smell the muffins baking now. Ooh. Death. The battlefield was strewn with bloody corpses under a charcoal gray sky that heaved and threatened rain. I was dying, or more precisely, my host was dying, and trapped in his memory. I was along for the ride. Part of my mind remained coherent enough to wonder about that. I could feel the press of metal against my host's head, a helmet which could easily hold a recollector. Was I going to experience death? The rest of my mind was overloaded by the pain that tore at my abdomen. My host had fallen against the wall of a trench, head propped up just enough to see the most of the body below the stomach was no longer as attached as it should be. Yikes. Yikes. I could see his intestines and internal organs spilling out onto the recently dug dirt. Mercifully, I started to feel that my host had lost all feeling below the top of the wound. Yeah, it's probably for the best. Whatever the heck happened to him. He was already dead. He must have known it. But his body just hadn't gotten the message yet. That is a cruel world. Who was I? I had assumed this was Apple Snack's memory, since it came from one of the orbs in his memory case, but that seemed unlikely now. Between the armored barding and the blood, I couldn't be sure. Several Pegasi flew back and forth over the battlefield, searching, relaying messages, or calling out names for a moment. Familiar sky blue mare with her shockingly brilliant rainbow mane and tail swooped over my trench. She hovered, looking about frantically. Her blood-stained purple suit looked nearly black in the light, and her battle saddle was scorched. Her eyes fell on me as she winced. Then she was off again. Hey, the large form of particularly statuesque red stallion and similar military barns slid down into the trench next to me. Big Mac? Is this Big Mac? His eyes went wide as he took in the morbid reality of my wounds. So, Sarge, we drive those striped bastards back? Felt my muzzle move and the words came out in low, masculine voice. I felt a drop of wetness hit our cheek at first. I thought the other pony was crying, but then another raindrop fell out of the sky, and another, and another. Yup. The red pony nodded. Wisps of orange mane fell. Oh, I guess it wasn't. Wisps of orange mane fell under his helmet, caked in dark red by blood. He spoke slowly. You did good, soldier. Mighty good. They'll make you sergeant after this. Rain was beginning to soak into his coat, washing caked blood out of it. Oh, how lovely, how courteous. My host choked, coughing up blood. The taste was warm and coppery in my mouth. Delicious. Post-mortem, I'm afraid, Sarge. My host's voice was eerily calm, and even he had minutes left to live. If that, and he seemed at peace with it. I'm afraid I won't be joining you when you go after all. We felt cold, a chill deeper than that from the rain. I felt drops of rain kissing the searing, painful wound. I was thankful I couldn't feel drops landing inside me. Oh, that would be fun. Just, sprinkle some rain inside you. That's always good. Don't talk, the big one said, looking deeply wounded. I ain't ready to let you go, Buck. Think the zebras had different to say. My god, my host actually chuckled. He was in utter agony. I hadn't felt pain like this since the dragon set me on fire. I was sure that my own body was screaming, and he just chuckled, like it was nothing. Don't worry, Sarge. We won the day, right? No regrets. The big red stallion looked like he was fighting tears. My host grinned, his muzzle full of his own blood. Well, one regret. Never did get to meet that hot sister of yours. Oh my god. The stallion frowned dangerously, and I suddenly realized that his mane was the same color of Applejack's coat. And they had similar freckles. Big Macintosh bristled, then burst a gruff laugh. Now you got to pull through, he grinned, so I can buck your backside, boy. LOL, that's funny. It was too late. Darkness was already creeping into the edges of my host's vision. Yup, that's the word. Vision. The Reaper pony had come to take him home, wherever home was before Celestia and Luna were goddesses. My host tilted his head back, staring into the darkening sky, feeling the rain on his face for one last time. A flock of Pegasi soared in from overhead, two of them pulling a passenger wagon full of other ponies, mostly unicorns. All the newcomers were boarding of yellow and pink and carried saddle boxes with little butterflies on them, just like Velvet Remedy's. All except the lead pony. She didn't need the uniform. Fluttershy already was the uniform. Oh dear. The shy Pegasus pony looked out over the hills and trenches full of dead and dying. Oh, this can't be good. Her eyes filled with tears as she began to tremble, but she stomped a hoof down and forced herself to find her voice. Oh, okay, everyone, please be calm. We're going to help. Fluttershy turned and called out to her team. Please, if you would take your positions and hurry. Thank you. Not the best Fluttershy, but you know, we're not. I'm not too interested in voices right now. I want to read. Seeping shadows had nearly engulfed my host's visions, and the other senses were fading fast. I was looking at the world from the bottom of a deep, dark well. Thankfully, the pain was at the top of the well, far away from us. We closed our eyes. It was hard to open them again. Our eyelids were heavy, like they were made of gold. When we did, there wasn't much to see, just clouds and rain. Barely visible, we were in a much deeper well. Fluttershy's head moved between us and the clouds, looking strangely upside down, cringing at the sight of my host. Oh no. She dashed up to us. I think we can help. Just, please hold on. What is Fluttershy gonna do? Are they gonna make him into a cyborg? We strained to speak. It only came out as a whisper. Bit beyond you. Go help the ponies who can. Our words trailed off. There was no more energy to put behind him. That was enough, hopefully, to get the point across. A unicorn in a yellow and pink dress stepped into view. Fluttershy, she said, her voice the whisper of a whisper. We're ready for the test run. What does that mean? What does the test run mean? What's up? Welcome back. The world faded to black. A black that was all-encompassing. No sight, no sound. Nothing to smell or feel. Even the taste of blood was gone from our mouth. We were dead. Oh, did I forget to change that? Oh god, if I forgot to change, it's not a big deal. I'll change it after. It really don't matter. I'll change it after. It's whatnot. Not a big deal. Let's see. We were dead. I can change it at pretty much any time here. Well, let's see real quickly. Let me just check. Because I can fix it. Part 15. Alright, all done. Fixed. Boom. Okay, cool. We should have been dead. Let me guess, they put him in a brain bot, but a pleasant warmth was spreading through us. I could feel it all the way to my host's tail. The world came rushing back like we were being released from a memory orb. There was no pain. It was replaced by the bone-deep chill. Our body was soaked in rain. The trench had become squishy with mud. We opened our eyes. Our body was healed. Complete. It was a miracle. It was impossible. Uh-oh. Necromancy? What did you do? I heard Amir's voice cry out from above. I looked up to see rainbow-maned mare dive out of sky, a rainbow-colored wake stretching out behind her. Fluttershy, what did you do? By the way, this is a flashback in one of the memory orbs. Rainbow Dash stopped hovering in the air, staring in utter shock at our fellow Pegasus. We healed them, Fluttershy said graciously, her voice somehow filled with happiness, but not a hint of pride. Several of her unicorns were trotting up to stand by her side. I know that, Rainbow Dash assured her, but how? Fluttershy blushed, looking pleased. We call it a mega spell. Rainbow Dash blinked. A what now? One of the unicorns cleared her throat and Fluttershy took a meek step back, allowing the mare to explain. It's a new underlying spell framework that allows smaller spells to be augmented in scope and intensity. Oh. Okay, we are not talking about politics here. One of the unicorns cleared her throat and Fluttershy took a meek step back, allowing the mare to explain. It's a new underlying spell framework. Oh, I just read that. The blue Pegasus looked lost and worried. This way, Fluttershy claimed. We can heal everyone on the battlefield with a single spell. No one has to die because we couldn't get to them in time. Okay, that's pretty cool. You just cast a mass heal spell on everybody. Rainbow Dash turned her stare over the battlefield. My host did too. Everywhere ponies were getting to their feet with expressions of awe and bewilderment. Only the dead remained dead, their corpses strewn across the hills and filling the trenches. The wounded, even those at the very brink of death from impossible wounds, were healthy and whole. Like my host. All of them? Wait, I'm sorry, did they just make them into ghouls? And like the zebra who is pulling herself from amongst the bodies, a zebra sword clutched in her mouth, crackling with electrical fire. Rainbow Dash shouted at Fluttershy, "You healed everyone indiscriminately? Even the zebras? Do you know what you've done? Do you know how many ponies died here today?" Rainbow Dash bellowed, "and now we have to fight the damn battle all over again." I could hear the yellow Pegasus squeak, beginning to cry. My heart broke at the sound. I wanted Apple Snack to turn towards her. I wanted him to confront the mare who had just saved his life, but he didn't even spare her a glance. Instead, my host lowered his head, sinking his teeth into mud to pull up his rifle, ignoring the slimy texture and earthy taste. Shots began to sound across the battlefield outside the trench. Oh no, it starts all over again. Fluttershy, get down, Rainbow Dash cried out a moment before the blue Pegasus tackled the yellow one, sending them both rolling into the trench next to me, her wing catching the wake of a missile as it shot over the trench and exploded, raining dirt down on us. The battle was engaged. Again. Not the smartest move. Nah, not the smartest move at all. But it is a move nonetheless. Velvet Remedy stopped as we approached the massive gate that the Steel Ranger had built in front of Stable Tech headquarters. The armored plate looked like it had been taken from a battleship's hull. It was slid down into grooves in a concrete wall that bisected what had once been the squat skyscraper's courtyard. Steel Rangers stood guard along the roof in the open half of the courtyard, accompanied by two of the tank-like Sentinel robots that had ironically helped prompt the creation of the anti-machine rifle. This outer half-courtyard was a mess of cracked steps and shattered cobblestone, concrete planters where nothing grew, and a dried fountain. Above the fountain rose a cracked and badly weathered statue of a once beautiful white unicorn with a curling purple and pink mane and tail. The statue had suffered from not only weather, but generations of graffiti before the Steel Rangers had taken possession of the building and began fatally discouraging raiders and miscreants from approaching their base of operations. Every pony else was focused on the guards and the magically powered armor and sentinel robot in front of the gate. The senior paladin mare trotted forward addressing them. I perked my ears to listen, but felt a sudden hoof nudge from Calamity. He pointed a hoof and turned to see Velvet Remedy walking up to the fountain. "Hello, great-grandmother," she said softly. "Great, great, 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 great." She paused, blushing. "I've sung your song, and I just wanted to say you saved us. I'm here because of you. Stable 2 worked." The Steel Rangers had quieted themselves strangely. Interested in my friend's almost internal conversation with the statue, Calamity moved away from us, flying quietly towards her. "You got it right." Velvet dug at the ground. "I just wanted you to know." There was a tear in her eyes as she turned and stepped away, moving to rejoin us. Calamity landed next to her, wrapping a foreleg about her in comfort. Velvet Remedy stopped, leaned into the embrace and sniffed once, then broke away, wiping a tear and returned to her place behind me. Pyrelight fluttered out in the sky and landed on the statue, causing the Steel Rangers to fall into battle stances. "At ease," Steel Hooves rumbled. I was willing to bet that behind his mask he had rolled his eyes. "Those things are dangerous," one of the knights explained. I chuckled grimly to myself. "Yeah, she might lift your visor and breathe, baking you." The mental image was grotesque. Having seen a pony killed cruelly like that was horrifying, but somehow the image of Pyrelight pulling the same trick struck my funny bone. Goddesses, there really was something wrong with me. The nightmare next to me, the one with the machine gun battle saddle, giggled in her armor. "You can't lift the visor in these helmets," she turned to me. "That would be a serious weak point in the armor. I can't imagine such a design getting through the shield committee." I didn't know exactly what she was talking about, but I gleaned the general idea. It wouldn't. I agreed if protection was the primary goal of the armor. "What other purpose could armor have?" she scoffed. "Intimidation." Behind us, Calamity had flown up to look Pyrelight in the eyes. "You crap on it and she'll kill you. Fair warning." A sky-rending squeal tore the air. Above us, the giant arm of a crane swung in view from behind the wall. The massive steel talons on the end of it lowered and grasped onto a metal gate, slowly with a tortured cry of metal grinding on concrete. The gate to the Steel Ranger Citadel in Stable Tech headquarters lifted to allow us across. Oh yeah, Discord. Oh, I frickin' always forget to close that. Yay! Yay! That's always fun. Alright, be gone! Okay. Poppy seed. The nightmare next to me said. "Huh?" I blinked, confused. "My name," she said. "I'm Night Poppy Seed." At my continued blank expression, she expounded. "Poppies are a flower from Zebralands. They have seeds." What a weird way to phrase your name. "Name's Poppy Seed. I have seeds. I'm from the my name comes from the zebras. They have seeds." That's so freaking weird. Oh man. Let's see. They have seeds. "Oh," I smiled back. "Little Pip." I lifted my right foreleg, showing off my pip buck. Pip is short for Pipbuck. I told her, choosing to conveniently forget my name was my mother's play on Pipsqueak. All the ponies in the stables have them. Even as I said that, I wondered if that was true, considering the often fatal strangeness of other Stable Tech stables. I looked beyond the lifting gate, a sudden lump in my throat. Well, in my stable, at least. Yeah, folks will be quiet. That's just how it is. People don't need to talk. "Really?" Poppyseed commented. "I'd always heard that to Pip, some pony meant to shoot that pony with a firearm. I'd never heard that before. And really, what do you say to that?" The rest of us started to move forward. Pyrelight seemed intent on staying outside in the Philadelphia outskirts. I wished her well, expecting she would still be nearby when and if we left. She had survived on her own for a long time. I was more concerned about the rest of us. Calamity looked back at the base of the statue, bent his head forward, and snatched a bottle cap out of the dry fountain bed. He flew back to us, taking his place walking at Velvet's side, dropping the cap into one of the saddlebags as he did so. The sounds of sporadic gunfire danced in the air. Steel Rangers trotted laps around a track running along the towering wall which encircled the lower floors of Stabletech headquarters. In the inner half-court, a senior paladin was barking orders at initiates as they struggled to master movement in their suits of magically powered armor. I get it, Calamity said to Steelhooves as one of the initiates bucked at a badly dented steel plate, leaving hoof marks nearly half a yard from her intended target. Your armor spell matrix enhances your strength and endurance to compensate for the bulk, right? Steelhooves nodded without a word. Interesting, Calamity mused. The enchantments in an Enclave suit negate its weight, kinda like one of the enchantments on Spitfire's Thunder. Steelhooves glanced back at the unique anti-machine rifle strapped to Calamity's battle saddle. The thing was almost twice as long as he was when fully assembled, so he kept it broken down when traveling. Different approaches, but still, it's all about keeping the weight down. Steelhooves had slowed, staring at Calamity. This was the first time he had witnessed Calamity's freaky knowledge of magical engineering, rarely seen as it was. The senior paladin mayor led us up the steps to the once grand doors of Stabletech.
Yo, what's up? Welcome to the party. Hype, hype.
What had once been gleaming polished bronze inlaid with richly varnished wood was now tarnished and discolored metal with inserts of warped and rotting timber. Above the door, the gear-shaped Stabletech logo was embedded into a metal over a pair of decorative nooks, where fires had once burned. Ashes from the nooks had stained the wall and doors below in streaks, making the building look like it had been crying.
Lotus, go ahead and draw the spa ponies infected. Go ahead. Go do that.
I shuddered, feeling a chill. Cocking his ear towards the gunshots, Calamity asked Steelhooves, I take it that's a shooting range out back. If your friends here ain't included to kick us out or shoot us anytime pressing, think I could take a few turns at it? Trying to impress the Rangers? Our ghoul companion retorted. Calamity laughed. Hell no, that ain't it at all. I trotted closer, my own curiosity waking. What then? Surely the 4-year running sharpshooting champion doesn't need lessons. I've never seen you miss. Velvet Remedy snarked even when he was supposed to. So why the shooting range? The leading mayor had stopped at the front door and was speaking to some pony on the other side through an intercom. Poppy C trotted in place next to me, looking anxious. Or bored, hard to tell without being able to see an expression. You see, this new gun, Spitfire's Thunder, is a magically enhanced anti-machine gun made for a Pegasus sniper. Calamity tipped the brim of his hat forward. It's enchanted so to weigh only a few pounds and to have only a feather brush of a kick. Fires more like magical energy weapon than a firearm. Even has lightning gem fuel in her insides. That's why she sounds like thunder when she's not. She's probably 20% faster. Carry the 20% cooler. The non-magical model and won't never jam. No moving parts. Now it was my turn to whistle. All of which means she's more magical energy rifle than firearm, but she still uses bullets, just like my battle saddle, and bullets are subject to wind and gravity, so that makes for an odd combination. He smiled to me, then looked frankly at Steelhooves. And that means I best get some lovin' with her on the firing range before taking her into battle proper. The door into Stabletech was open from the inside. Velvet Remedy pushed past us, rolling her eyes and tossing her mane. Do you and your gun need some alone time? She shot as she passed Calamity. He blinked. Well, yeah, that's what I just said. Faced with Velvet Remedy nickered and trotted inside, ignoring the confused Pegasus. My gosh. Calamity is so so dumb. But also extremely pretty OP. Okay. Does the news today make you anxious, worried about what might happen to yourself or your family should the mega spells fall? I know and understand your fears because I share them. My companions and I looked around, startled. The lobby of Stabletech had been designed to be a welcoming self-advertisement. The sad, sweet voice seemed to come from right in front of us, no matter which way we were facing. It filled the air. That's Sweetie Belle, Velvet Remedy whispered, searching for the speakers. Like you, I hope for the best, but like you, I need to prepare for the worst. I want a safe place for my loved ones to survive if that horrible day should ever come where our beautiful Equestria falls beneath the megaspell holocaust. It's automated, Poppy C told me. Starts up every time we go through that door. Didn't used to, but then we tried to disable it. Only made it worse. She pointed to the large Stabletech logo embedded in the floor. There used to be an image standing there of that unicorn from the statue out front. Maybe out of dancing lights. Looked like a damn ghost. Killing that also killed the interface for our tour presentation. She giggled wearily inside her armor. Enjoy! Explained why neither our guide nor the Steel Rangers milling about seemed to be playing the voice of Sweet Belle even the slightest bit of attention. I too need to know my family will be safe, but more than that, I want them to be happy. I don't want them locked away in a dark, cramped shelter for the rest of their lives. That's no better than a prison. I want my family to be safe and secure inside one of Stabletech's magnificent stables. Our guide let us past display cases, most of which were destroyed and the displays plundered and framed, posters on the wall all badly faded. The posters ranged from terrifying portraits of Armageddon, all of which somehow managed to be more wholesome and pleasant than the post-apocalyptic reality they attempted to prophecies, to pictures of a smiling Sweetie Belle urging parents to trust their children to Stabletech's promise of long and happy lives. All of them had a unifying message, although rarely put into these exact words. We care, you need us, you will die without us. Buy our tickets for the Stabletech lottery now. We were approaching the end of the hallway, passing a pristine Sparkle Cola machine. This one with a large backlit plate showing, oh gosh, Fluttershy drinking her favorite carrot-flavored drink, and an ammunition vending machine, which had been broken into and thoroughly looted. The end of the hall was adorned in false rocks, so the hallway would appear to transform into a small, darkened cave. The illusion would have been effective if chunks of plaster from the cave wall hadn't broken loose, revealing the wire mesh beneath. As our leaders stepped into the cave, loud clunking vibrations echoed through the hall and display lights came on, revealing a huge mock-up of a stable door. Sweetie Belle's voice came to life around us again, the recording playing at a strangely low speed for the first few seconds, making her voice briefly sound similar to Steelhoo's. Stabletech welcomes you to our new line of subterranean stables, featuring our patented SAS, Arcanotechnology SAS technology, and the product of years of dedicated, uncompromising efforts by our Stabletech scientists to bring you the most advanced and enduring designs based on the 3 pillars of post-apocalyptic survival: safety, amenities, and sustainability. Velvet Remedy and I exchanged looks. The mock stable door numbered 0 swung open on hinges as we approached, while a soundtrack played the sounds of an actual stable door being pulled open. Spinning yellow lights topped off the simulation, something that hadn't been present in Stable 2. You and your loved ones will be able to sleep in peace knowing that our impenetrable stable doors are built to survive and protect, even if a Zebra Invader detonates a balefire bomb directly outside of your new and safe secure home. With only a projected 7% failure rate under even those extreme and unlikely circumstances, Stabletech's mighty stable doors are guaranteed to protect you and your family. Wow, Velvet Remedy stifled a giggle. Before I could stop myself, I whispered Velvet Remedy's barn door doesn't swing that way. I gasped and quickly corrected myself. I meant stable 2's. Too late. The chocolate-coated unicorn with the scarlet and gold streaks in her white mane was fixing me with a stare that told me I wouldn't be hearing the last of this for a long, uncomfortable time. Damn it. Sometimes I hated my mother. Not that my slip of the tongue was really her fault, but it was her fault. Still thinking of that dark, cramped cellar that you feared would be your family's home? Let the magical light of SAS technology burn those fears away. Through the magical power of your stable's appointed overmare, each stable will enjoy fully realistic sunlight, even underground, with all the warmth and joy it brings, Sweetie Belle's voice boasted, and at night, a softer light will fill the halls, provided through enduring Earth pony technology. So far, the most accurate part of the exhibit was the hall lighting, with its ever-present high-pitched whine. Of course, this nighttime lighting had been 16 hours a day, every day, all the time. The realistic sunlight promised through the overmare had been reserved for the underground apple orchard, and based on the color and taste of the things we had called apples, I had my doubts about how fully realistic it was. Concerned about security? Fear not, each stable is supplied with a security level and a fully stocked armory. Our Friendly Pie camera system allows the overmare to keep an eye on every pony in public areas without prying into your private affairs. Sweetie Belle's disembodied voice seemed especially pleased with this feature. We here at StableTech believe in returning your life to the level of respectful privacy that you deserve without compromising your safety. We began to trudge through the bizarre mock stable. Its layout was nothing like the real thing, designed more like an amusement park ride than a functional shelter. Every few yards we would pass a large window. As our leader approached, lights would flicker on inside externally sealed rooms where mannequins would play out scenes of utopian underground life. With each room we passed, Sweetie Belle's ghost would regale us with some other aspect of how wonderful and safe living in a stable would be. After the other stables I had been in, I found that this was creeping me out. I couldn't stop thinking about how so many stables had apparently turned into lethal traps, very not like those promises. Somehow, the reaction I saw on Calamity's face made it even worse. Oh yeah, no, they're definitely rich. Here at StableTech, we have taken the time to think of everything. We know that in the event of the worst kind of megaspell cataclysm, it may take Equestria not months, but decades to recover. Those of us who choose to survive the destruction may have to live most of the rest of our lives underground and see a new generation born without knowing the world outside. So each stable includes a StableTech apple orchard, providing not only more than enough food for a growing underground community, but complete with grass for your children's hooves and mist fountains to simulate rainbows runoff on one of our patented SAS water talismans. Did other stables run out of food? Stable 2's apple orchard was simply put vast, which may explain why the rest of the stable never enjoyed magical sunlight. Did StableTech actually design the other stables with orchards that could only support a generation or two of growth? Or was Sweetie Belle purposely downplaying the horrors that she and her two friends anticipated? Of course, we all hope and pray that these stables will never be needed, but can any of us afford to take that gamble and not seek a place of safety and joy for our loved ones and ourselves? Velvet Remedy seemed on a verge of tears after the parting words of her ancestor, whom we both knew had become the first overmare of Stable 2, the stable whose special purpose was to keep us down there, safe forever. Or I knew until Spike could find the right ponies to cast Gardens of Equestria. I can't believe you lived your whole lives in a place like that, Calamity says he walked up the steps that led out of the exhibit. I mean, one that actually worked. That explains so much. I opened my mouth but couldn't find words. Only a little squeak escaped. We here at StableTech hope you've enjoyed the tour today. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask at the lobby desk. One of our friendly staff would love to tell you everything you need to know. Thank you for choosing Stable Tech. We were made to wait in the long hall of rotting wood paneling outside Elder Blueberry Saber. Oh my god, I forgot Elder Blueberry. Oh man. It goes on a long time. It's not infinite, but it certainly it's not over for a while. It's pretty infinite. It's not infinite. It's long. It's very long. Under the watchful glares of armor-encased ponies, as Steelhooves spoke with the Elder in private. I tried to engage Poppy Seed in conversation that worked until I misstepped by asking what she thought of the Steel Ranger's oath, wondering whether she felt the same way as Knight Buck had about following Applejack's principles. What I learned instead was that talking of the oath to outsiders, or tribals as she called it, was forbidden. After that, she ignored all my further efforts to chat. I couldn't tell if it was because I had deeply offended the knight, or because there were other Steel Rangers watching. I contemplated trying to eavesdrop, but then realized the guards wouldn't let me close enough to the door, and I wasn't entirely sure I wanted to know what was being said. I was sure there were some elements of the conversation that I would do well to hear, particularly anything regarding us or Steelhooves' mission. But there was probably more than a bit of discussion about internal politics and current affairs within the Steel Rangers. Such things were none of my business, and after entering one of Steelhooves' memories without permission, I didn't want to stick my hoof into his affairs uninvited so soon again. Yeah, there's roughly 44, yeah. Furthermore, I found that I really didn't want to know the Steel Rangers were distasteful. Steelhooves was a Steel Ranger, not just a former member who still wore the armor because for some reason I didn't quite understand, he couldn't remove it, but a current and still active part of the organization, a Star Paladin at that, which although I didn't quite know what that meant, sounded impressive. Between this side trip and the memories in his memory orbs, I was beginning to learn a lot about my newest companion, well, newest four-hooved companion, and I found I could accept most of it. Although not always easily, I felt I could trust him within certain parameters and call him a friend, but I did not envy his karma, and I was apprehensive about where his loyalties would fall if the hooves met the apple tree. Learning about him had also meant learning about the Steel Rangers. I was interested in them as they connected to Steelhooves and to Applejack, and they were in that special circle of friends whom Spike had personally known and whom I had grown to care about regardless of the centuries between us. The notion of defenders still sworn to the values of Applejack was like a light in the sea of darkness that the Equestrian wasteland often seemed to be. But the Steel Rangers themselves, or at least a great many of them, struck me as little better than well-equipped, more principled raiders. They didn't go about, torturing. No bodies hung mutilated from their walls, but they had no compunction about just sitting back and letting ponies suffer and starve and die when they had the technology to do some good. They were like Spike, only without the noble and self-sacrificing reason that justified their actions. I frowned and turned my thoughts away from internal contemplation and back into the hallway. Having decided not to eavesdrop, I slipped my earbloom into one ear and tuned my pitbuck back into the Philadelphia broadcast. But instead of Red Eye, I got another intrusion of March of the Parasprites. I looked towards my friends Velvet, Remedy, and Calamity were sitting together, occasionally casting furtive glances at the door to Blueberry Saber's office as Velvet helped divorce Calamity from the more egregious misconceptions of stable life that the tour had planted. I contemplated joining the conversation, but I had missed a fair part of it, and both Poppy Seed and the guard seemed more interested in them than me. So instead, I sat growing restless, bored, at the pictures on the walls, tattered and age-darkened oil paintings of buildings. I recognized one of them barely as the Red Racer Factory. I got up and started to walk the hallway, giving the paintings a closer examination. There were pedestals as well, set at regular intervals, each holding a small architectural model. Most of the models had collapsed, overcome by the weight of at least 20 decades, but a few were still standing, mostly intact, an amazing testament to the model builder. When Stable Tech built something, they built it to last. I was just about to pull the ear balloon from my ear when the current song ended, something both patriotic sounding and yet heavy on the use of an OB, I don't know, and Red Eye's voice spoke into my ear. My friends, let me share with you a secret. Just between you and me, I was not always like this. No, once I was a young cult, irresponsible and carefree. I did not understand the need to toil, to labor, nor should I have, for I was but a child, and childhood is the time for innocence, for exploration, for happiness and growth. I was lucky, fortunate beyond my deserving to be blessed with safe places to roam, security from the fiends and the horrors of the equestrian wasteland, and companionship in the form of my beloved dog, Winter. Oh, the adventures we had. Sounds beautiful, doesn't it? A time of peace and joy that I can return to in my mind at the end of the day, after the equestrian wasteland has thrown at me the worst of its horrors and despair. Between the visions of my peaceful past and our gloriously bright future, I find the strength to go on, no matter how hard the path or heavy the load. But my childhood picturesque and ideal and safe. Is that what your own children enjoy? Tell me, Equestrian Wasteland, how many of our children today are truly happy, truly carefree? Sadly, we both know the answer. None. Today, Equestria is a hard, miserable, unforgiving place. Our cults and fillies live with fear, violence, and death. The bleak and poisoned world offers our children only meaningless struggle, and all too often a cruel and terrifying end. There is no joy out there, no hope. No more. This ends here. This ends now. One day. Yes. The new Equestria we are building will offer them that same utopian security that I once enjoyed, but we cannot wait for that while our children suffer. The leaders of our past may have forgotten how much each cult and each filly is to be cherished when they unleash their arrogant wrath upon our world. But we who have lived through the hell know better, and we will not wait another day. As those living within lands already being reclaimed know, our nation's young ones are, and have always been, my highest priority. All that we sacrifice, we do for them, to give them a better place. And in the meantime, we strive to give them what safety and security our hooves can offer. And more than that, dear friends, oh much more. We provide schools where they can learn, medical centers where they will obtain free treatment, the best medical care in all of Equestria, and homes where they can live together with other children, making friends, all under the watchful care of loving, approved mares and stallions. Soon, the armies of the Children of Unity will come to your town, not as an invading army, oh no, but as an army of engineers and teachers and doctors. They will rebuild your schools, establish hospitals that will provide the best care in this ruined and tortured nation, and bring to you the words of the goddess so that you too may know unity. And once again, our children will be able to play. The door to Blueberry Saber's office opened. Steelhooves took a step out. Little Pip, could you come in here for a moment? Elder Blueberry! Yo, it's time to meet Elder Blueberry! Yo, what's up, Elder Blue? Was the first Steel Ranger that I'd actually laid eyes on. She was a rather pretty older mare. I suspected that when she was closer to my age, or even Velvet, she must have been quite cute. She had a pleasant blue coat, and her mane and tail had once been a berry purple, before it turned mostly silver gray. There were still a few wisps of the original color. I couldn't see her cutie mark. Her robes concealed a modest portion of her body. Still Hooves guided me in, closing the door behind him with his metal-sheathed tail. Blueberry Saber stood in front of me besides a heavy iron table whose interlaced frontal design reminded me oddly of scaffolding. She had one hoof up on the table, although with closer glance I could see that her hoof was not actually touching the metal surface. Trapped between hoof and desk was the round black ball of a memory orb. Little Pip, Steelhoof said, his voice oddly strained, I need you to look into that memory orb and tell me what is inside there. I looked at him puzzled, then at the Steel Ranger, Elder. She nodded with a smirk that looked ugly on what should have been a pretty face. "All right," I said, approaching slowly. I was a little surprised at my own hesitation. Something in the room just felt off. Still, I did as Steelhooves asked, lowering my horn towards the orb and focusing. I felt the odd washing sensation as reality slipped. Part of me panicked, suddenly thinking that they were incapacitating me. A memory of my own, that of Velvet Remedy shooting me with my own dart gun, flashed through my head. And then, I was no longer with them. Woo! The first sense I gained was small. Even before I could see the barn, I could smell the rich scent of hay, overlaid with other less pleasant earthy odors. Sight came next. I wanted to blink, as dazzling sunlight, beautiful and pure, filtered into the barn through an open hayloft. Then came touch. First, the touch of the cloak I was wearing, a rough but not pleasant cloth. Then, I felt odd. The body I was in was different, but I couldn't really put my finger on how. I had been in Earth Ponies before. The lack of a horn was no longer startling to me, and the body was less alien than that of a which was my exceptional freaky experience at Spike. But I still felt wrong somehow, and it was like an itch that wouldn't go away. My host was standing in a bed of hay watching as two familiar mirrors walked into the barn. They embalmed right past me without so much as a glance. "Now what's this you wanted to talk about, Rarity, that we needed to hide out in the barn for?" "Well," the elegant white unicorn said, looking at a freckled friend with a frazzled blonde mane. "Rainbow Dash said that last week at the summer sun celebration she came on to you, and you didn't mind." Ooh, saucy. I wanted a sticker. Rarity had managed to strike a perfect tone between gossip and suggestiveness. Yet I could tell, without a doubt, that she was only playing with the orange bear with a 3-apple cutie mark. Call it intuition, but I just knew that Rarity only had eyes for the stallions, and that made Applejack's expression all the funnier. "Oh, hey no," Applejack nearly shouted, backpedaling. "God dang it, not you too," Rainbow Dash was drunk. Again, and I told her. I really wished my host would laugh because it was hard to be in stitches when your body wouldn't cooperate, but in the very least, I could tell Applesnack that whatever he had been afraid I might find in here was rubbish. Applejack regained her composure as Rarity fluttered in her eyes, but failed to stifle a ladylike snicker quite fast enough. "Oh, for the love of," Applejack stomped. "Did you drag me all the way here just to mess with me?" She put a hoof to her freckled face. "Ah, hell. Did Applejack put you up to this? This is one of her practical jokes, ain't it?" "Actually, well, yes," Rarity admitted. "It was her idea. I knew it," Applejack huffed, stomping again. "But I really do have something I need to talk to you about," the graceful unicorn said, abruptly turning quite serious. Applejack could tell the mood had changed. Fun even that her expense was over. "What is it?" "I've come across some new magic." "Oh, necromancy. Oh yeah, let's talk about necromancy, because that's where we're going, I'm very certain," Rarity said cautiously. "Zebra magic. Yup, necromancy." She stopped measuring the country. Mare's reaction. "You mean that thing Zikora used to brew?" "Not exactly, no," Rarity lowered her voice. "Have you ever heard of a soul jar?" "A soul jar? What the heck is a soul jar?" Applejack stared at her purple-maned friend. "No, and I ain't sure I want to." But Rarity wasn't ready to stop. A soul jar is an item. It can be any item, really. Oh, it's a lich. It's a lich. It doesn't actually have to be a jar that you put a soul into. Applejack looked taken aback, but the unicorn continued. It was as if, now that she had started talking, she couldn't stop until it was all out. Putting a soul into a jar changes the object. It becomes effectively indestructible for one, and you can use the soul to hang other enchantments on. Oh, it's a little different. The unicorn stopped at a thought, then added, "It becomes a foundation, not unlike a mega spell framework, I suppose." "Rarity," Applejack gasped. What the hell has gone into you, girl? When did you even get this magic? This is the orange mare's voice lowered to a hiss. This is necromancy. Rarity looked to her friend and nodded her own head, eyes wide. I know. Then in answer, it's from a zebra book called the Black Book. Again, she paused thinking, well, the Black Book of something I can't pronounce. A name, but it doesn't have vowels in the places it out to. It has all manner of extremely icky things in it. Soul jars, bypass spells, magic to tear souls apart. With each word, Applejack's expression became more horrified. Rarity seemed not to quite notice. She gave a smirk like she was revealing a particularly juicy bit of gossip. If you buy into the more colorful background of the book, they say that it was written by a mad zebra alchemist who communicated with the stars through dreams. Oh boy, the eldritch demons! Who is they? Applejack asked, but never got an answer. Now, I know all of this is perfectly dreadful, and my first instinct was to burn the book and be rid of it, Rarity said. For the first time since the conversation turned dire, Applejack looked a little relieved. That relief was short-lived. Well, wait a second. Oh, what's going on here? Let's see. Do that. Boop, boop, boop. Ah, much better. Okay. A lich? Yeah, I'm not gonna explain it. A subject spell. And why would you want to do that? Think of it, Applejack. What soldier wouldn't be willing to give up just a small bit of her soul to be put into her own armor, making it completely impervious to any bullet, any weapon? Rarity was positively glowing in the rapture of her idea. And wouldn't have to be those ugly metal things your ministry has been working on. We could make perfect, impenetrable armor out of dresses. Beautiful dresses. Applejack was reeling. And not only would our soldiers look absolutely fabulous and be immune to the weapons of the enemy, Rarity continued, they wouldn't be weighed down, encumbered. Until now, armored barding has always come at the price of mobility, but now, Rarity? The unicorn stopped putting her hooves on Applejack's shoulder. Applejack, just think. None of our family would have to die in the battle anymore. If Big Macintosh had... No. No. No, she's discriminated towards, obviously. But that doesn't make you a bad person. Rarity dropped back, stunned by Applejack's sudden outburst, but the orange earth pony wasn't done. She advanced on her friend, jabbing a hoof out of her breast. Don't you dare bring my brother into this blackness, Rarity gasped, eyes wide. This talk stops now, Applejack demanded. I don't want to hear another word. This is vile. No soldier would give what you're suggesting, and even if they were willing, how could we let them? Some prices are just too high, don't you think? If there weren't horrific consequences to playing with these things, we'd already be facing zebras with impenetrable armor, or bullets that could have shoot through anything, or worse. Rarity stopped, then turned her gaze away from Applejack, a flush of embarrassment on her cheeks. Oh, you're so right. I don't know what I was thinking. Applejack let out a breath in deep relief. It's okay, Sugar Cube. You got wrapped up in the notion and didn't really think it through. Happens to all of us now and then. Now and again. What's up? The unicorns looked up to Applejack, smiling weakly. Well then, I'm lucky I have a good friend who can slap me out of it. Applejack gave a chuckle. No harm done then. Now I want you to go back to Canada and continue working on your designs. You have a heap of work on your plate as it is, and neither of us will mention this ever again. Like it never happened, Rarity said, genuinely thankfulness in her voice. Like it never happened, Applejack agreed. Rarity and Applejack embraced each other in a hug, then the unicorn slipped elegantly away and started back for the barn door. Hey, Applejack, called out her friends, stopped looking back. And when you get back, burn that book. Or better yet, have somebody else do it for you, the orange pony suggested. I got the suspicion that even reading it was messing with your head. Rarity lifted a hoof to her chin in thought, then nodded. Yes, I do think you are right, Applejack. She gave a ladylike frown. That book is dangerous. Applejack watched Rarity push the barn door open with a hoof and walk out. Finally, my host moved, stepping lightly so as not to make any noise following the beautiful white unicorn. Hey, Applejack called out again, galloping past me fast enough to make me cloak flutter. She stopped at the door, calling out, and for whatever nonsense Rainbow Dash put you up to, that hug does not count. I was back in my own body and back in the presence of Steelhooves and Blueberry Saber, both high-ranking members of the Steel Rangers, the wearing of those ugly metal things Applejack had gone ahead and designed. Gears were starting to move in my head again. The pony in my brain was busy shoving puzzle pieces into place, and the first one that clicked was the memory of Applejack and Rarity talking in Spike's memory. I sure hope this ain't nothing to do with that thing we never talked about. Oh no, darling, I gave that project up ages ago. Steelhooves interrupted my mental puzzle solving with an uncharacteristic tone. Well, what was the memory? I blinked. I was no longer thinking that the issue was Applejack's fidelity, which should never have been in question, but I was at a loss as for what had Steelhooves on edge. Clearly, Applejack had talked her friend away from that horrifying course. Otherwise, such perfect armors would still be around today. It was a conversation, I offered, my brain working to figure out how to pull the information I wanted out to them. Between the mayors of the Ministry of Technology and the Ministry of Image, I wondered if I should have called it the Ministry of Wartime Technology, but it was too late to change my wording. It was a long conversation about several things, most of them trivial, I said, not exactly dishonestly. What specifically were you looking for? Steelhooves shook his head. Telling you would bias your answer. Elder Blueberry snorted. Well, if you won't, I have no problem telling her. The elderly mayor smiled at me. Tell him that this memory proves the values of the ministry mayor. He so stubbornly clings to our fiction. This memory proves that she didn't really care about the lives of the soldiers, but only about advancing her own designs. And when some other pony came up with a much better armor design, she made sure it never saw the light of day. Oh, that's what this was about. I blinked, feeling angry now. That's what this is about? Of all the much worse things in that memory, the elder of the Steel Rangers was focused on this? I about spit my bit. Standing up as tall as my little frame would allow, I huffed. How about I tell you what I didn't see in the memory? Blueberry Saber blinked in surprise. Steelhooves took a tentative step towards me. What I didn't see was my host. From the blank look in the elder's eyes, I realized I was using terms I had come up with myself. I had no idea what the proper term for a memory's host was. Not that it mattered. The elder was an earth pony. She couldn't see into a memory without a recollector anyway. It seemed increasingly likely that she had never actually seen the memory herself, or that she had many years ago and lacked a clear recollection of its contents. So I tried again, keeping my anger at this nonsense tightly under control. I didn't see the pony whose memory it was, not even a forehoof. And while that's not entirely unusual, I'm quite certain that the two ministry mayors could have seen her either. I didn't think they would have had that conversation if they knew some pony else was present. Both the elder and Steelhooves were still for at least a moment actually paying attention. What I saw in there was that some pony was spying on the ministry mayors. Invisible. I remember the itchy strangeness. I kind of figured there was an invisibility cloak and some sort of third-party crud going on there. I'm pretty sure I just shared the memory of a zebra. Somebody gave them that book. Another puzzle piece slotted into my head. I lifted my pitbuck saying, I found this in the rubble of a recruitment center out near the Shattered Hoof facility. I played the old recording, removing the ear bloom attachment so that both of them could hear. I'm sending you one of the devices recovered from Shattered Hoof Ridge. Intelligence suggested that the zebras have developed invisibility spell fetishes, but this looks like something designed by the Ministry of Magic. It's even Pip-Buck compatible. I hate to say it, but it looks like we've got traitors in our midst. If some pony in Ministry of Arcane Science is leaking arcane technology to the zebras, the princess will need to take action. What followed the recording was much discussion, but in the end, the only thing resolved was that I had gotten at least a bit of the Elder's trust, while managing to sidetrack both of them from their earlier argument. It was over an hour later when Elder Blueberry Saber got up and trotted to the window, staring out at the angry red glow coming from the walled-off portion of Philadelphia. It is bad, that is very bad. If you're going in there, you won't be able to do it like that, she said, not with armor and an arsenal and squad of companions. Why not? I asked. I'm not worried about getting past the wall. I can just float us over when there is a gap in the patrols. That was at least my plan. Because, Blueberry Saber turned to me, you will never get close to Red Eye that way. Oh, gotta get the music back. Yeah, that's okay. You would never get close to Red Eye. He's always protected in the very least by a flock of griffins, if not by a wing of those damned alicorns. The first sign of trouble, and he'll hop his sky chariot and leave the city. You'll lose any chance you have of taking him down before you even know it. Damn, I was confident of being able to sneak close until she mentioned the alicorns. I should have figured this couldn't be so easy, but I damned if I would just give up and go home. Not after the fresh reminders of what these slavers were doing to innocent ponies. I can help you, the elder offered, if you agree to help me in return. Oh, there it goes again, the classic scratch my back, I scratch yours shindig. Oh, this was going to be one of those days. The elder laid it out for me. She could get me in and maybe one of my companions into the walled section of the city, stripped of our possessions and dressed in the rags of slaves. I'd have to work my way to him from there, preferably by gaining his trust rather than by body count. The latter method was likely to backfire for the same reason a covert assault would. You may have more to fear from the inmates than the guards, Blueberry Saber noted. Red Eye's armies have started rounding up raiders and putting them to work as slaves along with the rest. Some of the ponies you'll be stuck with in there are exceptionally nasty refuse. This plan just kept getting better. And what do you want from me in return? I asked finally. Two things. Blueberry Saber walked around the office as she spoke. First, Red Eye has managed to develop some sort of engine fueled by radiation. He's been having the slaves mine the Philadelphia crater itself for irradiated debris, which he can turn into usable energy to run his factories. I'll turn that down just a pinch. There we go. Steelhooves snickered. Well, that's a game changer. Red Eye's claims of building a new Equestria, at least on an infrastructural level, suddenly gained a lot more authenticity. Indeed, Blueberry Saber agreed. She turned to me. I want the plans for that engine. Okay, plans for a radiation engine. That was one. And number two, the Steel Ranger Elder frowned even more deeply. Our intelligence states that Red Eye has gone a hold of research into something called a bypass spell. I felt a jolt. I had heard of that sort of magic not 2 hours ago, and not in a pleasant context. Uh-oh. I want you to find his research on bypass spells, confiscate what you can, destroy the rest. The Elder stomped, both her foreheads thoroughly. Obliterate it. Oh, yup, they're back, and they're working this time. It's been a while since we've seen any. I raised an eyebrow since when is the Ministry of Wartime Technology interested in spell research? Steelhoof stepped in. Since it's a matter of survival, he explained. The Zebras created bypass enchantments midway through the war. A bypass augments another magical effect, allowing it to ignore one specific type of thing. The Zebras, for instance, used it to create balefire bursts. the much smaller version of the mega spell you are familiar with the zebra bypass. With that, a zebra could trot into an area crowded with ponies, set off the blast, and kill every pony within a block or two without being harmed herself. The mental image of an invisible zebra walking into a crowded stable atrium during one of Velvet Remedy's performances suddenly lodged in my mind and refused to leave. The unicorns of the Ministry of Arcane Sciences failed to crack the enchantment before the mega spells fell, Blueberry Saber informed me, but it's impossible to know how close they were, and thus how close Red-Eye is. I think, however, that you can grasp. It is in every pony's best interest that Red-Eye is not allowed to finish this research. I nodded, now imagining spells with an alicorn bypass by the goddesses. So, the Elder asked, do you agree to my offer? As much as I hated to, I didn't see another way. Not now that simply killing Red-Eye wasn't enough. This is a stupid plan. I sighed, looking at my friends. Almost definitely, but it's the plan we've got. I ain't letting you go in there alone, Calamity insisted, especially unarmed. I smiled at his loyalty. I won't be totally unharmed, I assured him. They won't be taking my horn, and they can't take my pitbuck either. Instead, we would be wrapping my forelegs in bulky rags to hide its presence. Why do you have to go alone? Velvet Remedy asked, almost pleading. If anything, she seemed to like this plan even less than Calamity. Because I don't want the damn slavers to get their hooves on you. You're gorgeous, and in there, beautiful is a really bad thing to be. I need you out here. You're a non-combatant, and that place is full of enslaved raiders. Please don't make me explain further. Velvet Remedy scowled, clearly hating every word, but said nothing more. One of us needs to be with you, Calamity demanded. Why not me? At least with Calamity, I felt comfortable with the direct answer. 2 reasons, I said, feeling bizarrely like Blueberry Saber for a moment. First, because you are a Pegasus, and Luna only knows what they would do with the Pegasus. You folks aren't exactly a common prize down here. I pressed my lips together in chagrin. I don't think we'd be able to stay together past the gate. Calamity was not at all satisfied. I don't care. Let them try to do what they think. I'll let them get away with. I'm not abandoning you because of that. I'd expected that, but I still felt a wave of genuine gratitude. But before I could move on to my second reason, Velvet Remedy interrupted. How about Steel Hooves? I can't go, Steel Hooves said simply. A Steel Ranger is a bit conspicuous. Velvet sighed with exasperation. We all know you're a ghoul now. You don't have to hide in your armor. You can take it off. No, I can't. Is he melted into his armor? Calamity cocked his head, giving Steel Hooves a querying look. Why not? Velvet Remedy pushed. Because my body is fused into it, was the ghoul's answer, eliciting several gasps, one of which was from me. Oh, Calamity took a few steps back. You're that kind of ghoul. He's that microwaved kind of ghoul. Wait, there are types of ghouls now? Other than Ghoul Pony and Zombie Pony? Velvet Remedy looked equally surprised by Calamity's reaction. What kind of ghoul? He's a Canterlot ghoul. Steel Hooves nodded. Velvet Remedy and I were still in the dark. Would some pony care to explain? No more secrets. Oh boy, I'm gonna enjoy reading this one. I have to get a drink real quick. This is gonna be interesting to read about. Ponies who suffered massive amounts of magical radiation and survived were forced to endure the cruel deterioration of becoming a ghoul pony. Since the zebras had employed different kinds of mega spells, it only stood to reason that there were minor differences in the effects. In most cases, these differences were barely recognizable, except between the ghoul ponies themselves. But Canterlot ghoul ponies were entirely different sort, because the mega spell unleashed in Canterlot was unlike any other. When the bomb started to fall, Steel Hooves told us, Princess Luna threw up a magical shield over the entire city. Canterlot was bombarded by hundreds of missile strikes. None of them were mega spells. like the missiles which hit Cloudsdale, Philadelphia, but they would have been devastating all the same had they struck home, but the princess kept the shield up. Velvet Remedy and I sat listening almost entranced. Calamity paced off to the side fretfully. I was stationed in one of the hamlets that surrounded the city, just outside the perimeter of the shield. My squad's orders were to evacuate the hamlets, getting as many of the ponies to shelters or stables as we could. The blast wash from those missiles exploding against the shield wiped out hundreds in the first few minutes. The bombardment lasted hours. Steelhooves took a deep, trembling breath and pressed on, even hidden in his armor. I could tell he was shaken, although at the time I thought it was by the memory of those deaths. I would realize later it was because of what happened next. Applejack was with me, but when strikes started, she fled back to Ponyville, leaving us to do our work while she tried to ensure all her family got safely into Stable 2. I subtly wondered if Applejack herself had made it. Had she been in Stable 2 when it closed? I saw Velvet Remedy glancing at me and I suspected she was wondering the same thing. Oh, this isn't an AU, this is a story. But the missile strikes were just being part of Zebra's ploy. The Megaspells was already in the city, a special one. After all, this one was meant to kill Luna and Celestia, not just 750,000 ponies. Hoi, ho, hello. The pink cloud, Calamity said abruptly, stopping, not stooping. Yes, Calamity momentarily took over the tale. The pink cloud was a great radio cloud of entropic, necromantic gas. Like Taint, it didn't care if you had gas masks. Nothing protected against it. Everything it touched, it seeped into and rotted. I've heard horror stories of bodies found partially melted into sidewalks, or which their saddles fused to their bones. Cantala is still toxic today. The streets and buildings soaked it up like sponges and are slowly releasing it as they decay. The zebras wanted the shield, Steelhooves continued. It kept the pink cloud concentrated in the city, strong enough to fatally poison even Celestia and Luna. By the time they comprehended that they were dying, it was too late. But still, they kept up the shield. I'm told they took turns, one powering the shield while the other tried to regain a little strength, that in the end, they were holding each other for support. Oh, I'm going to... Oh yeah. Yeah, this story is freaking infinite. It keeps going and going and going. Yeah, kinda. Well, hold on. Yeah, kinda. That just sounds like Gotham now that I think about it. That just sounds like Gotham City. The zebras wanted the shield continue. Okay. Why? I asked, feeling tears forming in my eyes. Why didn't they just let their shield fail? The city was already doomed. Why didn't they escape? Would you have? Steelhooves asked simply. I was still in one of the more remote hamlets when the shield finally came down. The city had soaked up enough of the pink cloud that the exposure wasn't fatal, but... Calamity again added to the tale, a tone of disgust in his voice. By the time Luna and Celestia realized that the pink cloud was killing them, the first attack had been hours ago. The Pegasi had already closed up the sky, the wind was beginning to go wild. With the sad flap of his wings, our Dashite friend explained, if Celestia and Luna had let the spell of theirs drop, they probably would have survived. Though most likely at one fraction of their former selves, but a whole heap of other ponies would have been doomed as the uncontrolled winds blew pink cloud out over all of them, evacuating hamlets, over farms. 'Twould have destroyed all life, far as Ponyville, maybe further. Mournfully, he informed, I'm so sorry to both of ya, I really am. But Luna and Celestia ain't goddesses. watching you from the heavens like your stable teacher taught you. The princesses gave their lives so that your ancestors could make it into that stable and live. Yeah, right, that's what I say. Dash shite, more like da shit, you know? I get it. Yeah, it's absolutely hilarious. Your super inhaler? Dude, I'm gonna need that super stim pack for this one. Actually, I think I'm gonna need like several super stim packs to breathe in this crud. You know, photosynthesize. Breathe in the pink crud. Breathe it in! Yeah. But yeah, this story's practically bottomless. It was a long time before Velvet Remedy and I were able to talk again. For a while, we just moved away from the others, found a corner by ourselves, and held each other in silence. In that time, I decided that I was damn well going to keep praying to Celestia and Luna anyway. It didn't matter if their accounts didn't match my beliefs. I still believed in my heart that somehow Luna and Celestia were up there, watching us, caring about us, giving us guidance. Nah, dude, breathing is for nerds. I just didn't know if what I believed was true. I realized it probably wasn't, but I could choose to believe anyway. Finally, we gathered together again for round 2 of Every Pony not going into Philadelphia with me. I have to admit, with my faith shaken, I no longer felt as confident, but I plowed on anyway. Just checking the sound real quickly. There you go. Well, it's, now that's beyond quiet. I guess it's just silent then. It is what it is. Oh, there it is. Second, I told Calamity, picking up where we had left off. You're a Pegasus. Little Pip? I think that was the first one. Well, it's also the second one, because you're my escape route, my lifeline. No pony else can swoop in and rescue me if things go bad. I need you out here so you can do that. Calamity frowned, but seemed to find that more palatable. Wait, he looked at me like I was trying to dupe him. How the hell am I supposed to know when you're in trouble, or where to find you, if I'm not here and you're in there? Fortunately, I already had this planned out. These slavers, at least their rank and file, don't seem to be the most educated lot. I'm pretty sure they wouldn't be able to tell where my pit buck ends and a peripheral begins, so I'm confident I can get in with the slotted attachment. I smiled. That means either a stealth buck or broadcaster we got from the Griffins. I floated out both. I'll take the broadcaster, you take the stealth buck. Steel Hooves can activate it for you when... I know how to use a stealth buck, Calamity interrupted, holding up a hoof to my device. So how do I get your call, genius girl? 'Cause you missed it. I don't have one of them pit bucks of my own. I grinned as I next floated out Velvet Remedy's custom pit buck still in my saddlebags. After all these weeks of travel, Velvet Remedy gave me a pained expression. Yes, I kept it. I told her before she could say anything. And yes, I know you don't like wearing it. You shouldn't have to. This is just the pit buck plan if the main plan fails. Calamity raised an eyebrow. And that is... Finally, I levitated Homage's override device out of my saddlebags. I have a very important mission for all of you to complete while I'm gone. I looked my companions over and decided that there had never been a better team assembled for such a job. I need you to take this to Philadelphia Tower and attach it to the mainframe in the base station. Once you do, it will give DJ Pwn 3 both eyes and voice in Philadelphia, kicking Red Eye out, and that will free up the receivers in the station to pick up my broadcast. It is what it is. Red Eyes almost certainly got some heavy forces guarding that tower, Steelhooves noted. I expect we'll be in for a battle. Then you definitely need a medical pony, Velvet Remedy asserted. Calamity tipped up the brim of his hat. Well then, looks like we got ourselves a plan. Oh man, I imagined them almost like preparing for a bank heist type thing going on. Go ahead, Steelhooves said, holding the last of his 4 memory orbs out to me on an armored hoof. You've seen the others. You might as well see the last one before you go. I didn't think I was ready for another trip into Apple Snack's memories. The day had been too much of an emotional maelstrom. I felt weak and fragile, like another gust could cause me to break. I put up a warning hoof, shaking my head. Steelhooves grunted. Compared to what you've seen? This one is gentle, he pressed. You trust me, don't you? To very specific extents, I admitted. It's not you and Applejack having sex, is it? Steelhooves stared silently, then he put the orb down, letting it roll towards me on the floor. You have a dirty mind. He turned and walked out. I stared at the orb as it rolled to stop against my right forehoof. Oh, that's hilarious. Man, it's quite the story. There are times I question why I read this. But at the end of the day, it's pretty fun. Oh man. Boom. Yeah, that's it. The Rock Johnson eyebrow raise. This isn't fair. I recognized the voice of Rainbow Dash almost a full minute before I heard her. I was Steelhooves, not Apple Snack this time. Not with the heavy armor pressing all around me. My vision beyond the inside of the helmet was limited to the view out of my visor, but I was graced with an exceptionally complex and sophisticated eye-forward sparkle. Within the helmet, I seemed to have access to everything my EFS and Pitbuck provided, and more. Breathing inside the armor was unpleasant. My muzzle was pressed into a rebreather. The air was cool and fresh, like supplied by a minor air talisman, but the mouthpiece was simply uncomfortable. The armor itself was bulky and weighed down on me, but I felt strong. Stronger than in any memory I had experienced before. The weight, however heavy, felt no more taxing than carrying a light pack. My hoof steps were heavy, like my hooves were. Well, encased in steel armor exactly as they were, it was all in all an enlightening look into Steelhooves' existence, and while I could see the advantages, I did not envy him for it. Oh man, so true. I trod down a hallway focused on the wooden double doors at the end. This, I guessed, was an office building of some sort, not mercifully a battlefield. There seemed to be no imminent threats. I felt myself raise an armored hoof and push open the door with measured gentleness. Inside was a barely furnished office that looked almost unused. A few shelves and a desk. And this was where Rainbow Dash and Applejack seemed to be having an argument. Applejack was standing behind the desk, dressed in a suit that she looked distinctly uncomfortable in. Rainbow Dash, on the other hoof, was wearing that same purple and black uniform I had seen her in earlier today. And years ago, or rather, a pristine new version of the same basic design. It had a jagged yellow neckline, a skull-shaped cloud on the flank, shooting a rainbow-colored lightning bolt, covering where Dash's actual cutie mark would be. Both mares turned to look at me. Applejack, wait a minute. The skull-shaped cloud on the flank, shooting a rainbow-colored lightning bolt, covering where Dash's cutie mark would be. I think we all know what faction these people are based off of in a certain 1940 era of our reality. Nobody needs to say it. We all know who. We all know who they're based off of, I'm guessing. Instead, it's the Enclave. Both mares turned to look at me. Applejack nodded, giving Steelhooves a smile of gratitude. Rainbow Dash only seemed to size up the metal warrior, clearly unable to recognize the pony beneath. I recalled that the Pegasus wouldn't learn about Applejack and Apple Snack until a party that I suspected was still a year or two away, her attention returning to her orange-coated friend. It's just not right, the Blue Pegasus spat with righteous indignation. The Ministry of Awesome is putting up almost 50 towers as tall as clouds all over Equestria, and here you are having to sell Sweet Apple Acres just to get a suit of armor built? How does that make any sense? Okay, maybe not an argument. That's cause building those towers is y'all seem to be doing, Applejack explained patiently. Meanwhile, my ministry is helping fund over 4 dozen industries, giving them the subsidies they need to keep running until they can pull a solid profit. And next year, there'll be 12 more. Rainbow Dash gasped, then cocked her head. Don't you sometimes think the Ministry of Technology is a little too successful? Applejack nudged her cow pony hand and smiled. No, seriously, the Blue Pegasus claimed, spreading her wings. It's gotten so sometimes I can't even recognize Equestria anymore. The orange pony with a graying blonde mane gave her friend a look. I hadn't noticed the gray in the other memories, although the difference in age was at best a few years. I realized with amusement that, at some point, Applejack had started dyeing her hair. I wondered if at that age, I'd feel the urge to, but then, I'd be a lucky mare to live that long in the equestrian wasteland. For example, do you really need all those roads? The rainbow-maned Pegasus asked. Some of us ain't got wings, remember? There was a clop at the door. Steelhooves trotted to Applejack's side like a bodyguard. Rainbow Dash scowled, but moved to the side. Come on in, Applejack called out. The door pushed open and Apple Bloom walked into the room. Apple Bloom! Yeah, that's my girl! She was beautifully groomed and wore a business dress of mahogany and rose that went well with her mane. She looked infinitely more comfortable in her dress than her older sister did in the suit. There was a business bag strapped to her side. Wait, Rainbow Dash said, looking between the two sisters. You're selling your farm? To your own sister? Technically, Apple Bloom said in a politely professional voice, she's selling Sweet Apple Acres to Stable Tech. The younger sister turned her head, pulling open her business bag and pulled out a clipboard with her teeth. She offered it to Applejack, who took the other end, then set it on the desk between them. I think you'll find everything is just as we promised, Apple Bloom told her sister. I noticed her voice was a touch more urban than her older sister's, the country accent not as strong. Steelhooves moved towards Apple Bloom, leaning close and whispering into her ear, You're not gonna plow the place and build a mall, are you? Oh, heavens no, Apple Bloom whispered back, looking uncomfortable, almost guilty. Her oldest sister caught the look. Hold on, you're not gonna kick me and Granny off the farm, are you? Apple Bloom looked wounded. How can you even ask that? I'm your sister. Cause I know that look, Applejack said sturdily, and it cause I'm your sister that I do. Now spill it. Apple Bloom sighed, then pulled out a set of blueprints, unfurling them on the desk in front of her older sister and the 3 really guests. You'll still have rights to the trees and the apples just like we promised. Stable Tech is only buying rights to the land. But you'll have to move all those apple trees in this section here, and you won't be able to use the barn until next spring. What? Applejack cocked an eyebrow at her younger sister. Why? Cause we'll be gonna building a stable here. Footnote level up. New perk, a little dash. While wearing light armor or no armor, you run 20% faster. You got mail. You got mail. You got armor. Next chapter. 25. Let's see how long 25 is. 25. 25. Yeah, 25, 25, 40. 45? I don't know. 25. 25. 18,000 words. Oh god, I'm screwed. 6, 7, 8, 9. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Today is Wednesday. I read this one. Those 2 are 1. Then I read those on Friday. Okay. I'm just planning on how I want to go about this. I want to finish these 10 chapters, the 20s through the 30s, by the end of the week.
I want to be to chapter 30 by the end of the week. So I am going to go through this as much as I can. And hello there. Welcome. Oh, 18,000 words ain't nothing. I have read 30,000 words in some of these videos. I have gotten very accustomed to torturing myself. I got used to it. Still working on it. But I'm getting used to it. I'm getting used to talking my head off for a couple hours. Yeah, right? Yeah, seriously. This could be the equivalent of your exam, pretty much. At the end of this chapter, let's test your knowledge and see what you've learned so far. Maybe after this, I'll go back and play some more Dead Space. That might be more fun, cause it's still fairly early. But this will be at least an hour and a half, so it'll be 3 hours by the time we're done with this chapter. Chapter 25, Generous Souls. We stand at the dawn of a new golden age where others merely survive, we thrive, and while I've led your efforts, it has been by your own strength, because yes, freedom is what we all work towards. You do realize this is over 600,000 words in total, right? This series ain't playing. Alone, I had given my possessions, even my barding, to Calamity. Night Poppy Seed had brought me soiled, filthy slave cloths to wrap myself in. Thick wrappings had gone around my right foreleg to hide my bit puck, complete with twigs and bloodstains to suggest my leg had been cruelly wounded. If any pony asked, I intended to tell them I'd been run through with a piece of rebar. Yeah, there's a huge exam gonna be at the end of this. Maybe at the end I should just recap. When we get to the very last, when we get to the epilogue, I'll just ask for an exam. What have you learned through the story? Fill out the quiz, submit here. You know, just write your name at the top of the page, the date, you know, that kind of thing. And I'll go through it and grade it and just be like, not correct, wrong. Actually, the words used were this and this. Then I had been shackled. As with the slavers before, Night Poppy Seed had been unable to shackle me properly at the hoof thanks to my pitbuck, so she had locked the manacles above my knees. I had floated myself into the cage of a slave wagon and bedded down in a moldy hay filled with small itchy bugs. It had taken only minutes to become wretchedly uncomfortable. Between that and nearly getting fucked in the tail by a giant flaming Pinkie Pie in the evening before, I had been deemed to look decently pathetic. Name me one rock. Name me the rock in chapter 23. No, name me the rock between chapters 20 and 36. Which rock am I talking about? Yeah, right. You gotta watch the entire series all over again. Incorrect. You get one question wrong, you have to retake the entire test. if you get as much as a typo, a single spelling mistake, if you have to have spaces in your prompt or commas, apostrophes, or anything, and you don't include that, you fail. You fail the whole thing. You got started all over again. I had been allowed to attach a few bobby pins to my rags, but I would have to hope I could find a screwdriver somewhere on the other side of the wall. And sounds like an awesome story. So when I ask for sentences and stuff, you gotta make sure you put the periods in the right spot. You screw that up, You just done. You're done. You gotta retake it, the whole thing. You gotta watch the whole series again before you get another attempt. Then with then with worried goodbyes, my companions left me alone. I was to lay there and wait for a member of Red Eye slavers whom the Steel Rangers had sufficiently bribed, or perhaps ensure the cooperation of in less wholesome ways, to come in and get the slave wagon. I'd forgotten what it felt like to be alone. I had spent my whole previous life alone. I hadn't had any friends growing up, and my mother, as much as I loved her, wasn't the sort of parent a filly could feel together with. Alone is cold and dull and miserable. It is a void that aches to be filled. Burp. And the little hobbies and distractions that I had turned to had never really filled that hole, because it was a hole that could only be filled with companionships. Yeah, right. If you as much have a uppercase and a lowercase spot, you're done. That's it. That's it. If you don't put a space in the right location, you're done. F. F minus, F plus, F square minus, F minus square. Growing up, the closest I'd come to that was music. The singing on the Stable 2 broadcast, at least with music, there was another pony involved who was trying to make a connection, and I could pretend that pony was trying to make a connection specifically with me. Not just any pony who was listening. The illusion was never perfect, and it couldn't be held beyond the song, but while the music was playing, the mirage of friendship helped protect me against the cold. Needless to say, it was the songs of Velvet Remedy which I had cherished the most. I had even fallen in love. I think of her with my dream of her. Dude, I had a dream last night for whatever frickin' reason. My middle finger was cut off. I have no clue why. But that was a dream I had, I guess. My middle finger was literally cut off, and I had, like, the other four. It was so weird. It was like, God, how am I supposed to play games like this? Like, on my right hand specifically. Yeah, right? Music, the scene of Stable 2 broadcast. At least with music, there was another pony involved who was trying to make a connection. And I could pretend that pony was trying to make a connection specifically with me, and not just any pony who was listening. The illusion was never perfect, and it couldn't be held beyond the song, but while the music was playing, the mirage of friendship helped protect me against the cold. What? Oh, that's a good dream. Needless to say, it was the songs of Velvet Remedy which I had cherished the most. I had even fallen in love. Oh, I already read that. There we go. That said, I wouldn't have traded my very real friendship with the actual pony for anything, much less for a relationship with my two-dimensional daydream. What I had was better, far better, because it was real. When I left Stable 2, my life changed forever, and the most drastic changes wasn't the vast open wasteland or the sickly sunlight that pushed its way through the clouds. It wasn't the horrors and wickedness and cruelty I had seen, or the daunting amount of pain that I had suffered, or even the growing river of pony blood drowning my hooves. Oof. Was it the snow? Was it a snow cone? Was it wintertime? The most drastic change was friendship, and it started just a few days in the stable with a pony named Calamity. Calamity was unlike any pony I'd ever met. He was fearless and noble, and just in a way that I could only aspire to, and he cared about me in a way no pony, not even my mother, ever did. He was willing to stand by me even when I was being foolish and wrong. Not that we never disagreed, because we did often enough. But it gave me the benefit of the doubt. He trusted me, and he was some pony I knew I could trust in return. I freely admit that I had been jealous when Calamity and Velvet Remedy had started to gravitate towards each other, and in retrospect, I have to wonder, was my conviction that there were a couple already accurate or self-fulfilling prophecy? How foolish I was to feel that way. But friendship was, and still, new to me, and I had many lessons to learn about it, and many more to go. If the sheer number of Spike's stories are to be believed, Only after I had come to accept their closeness and take comfort in it was my heart really open enough to embrace homage. I had friendship, but the void goes deeper than that. I wanted more than companionship. I yearned for love and physical intimacy. Little Pip, you dirty devil. That is sad. Pity you. I will also admit that when Homage first opened the possibility, I was drawn to her out of desperation, but that changed. She changed. She changed that. Likewise, I would not blame a pony for thinking that our relationship had been fast and brief, but it was true that I had not met her in a coat and mane until Ten Pony Tower. I had gotten to know much of her before seeing her face to face, as she had gotten to know me. In truth, I have known Homage almost as long as I have known Calamity. True, I had not known her deeply and personally until Ten Pony Tower, but who really knows their friends well in the first few weeks? And I can safely say that the connection we had built before meeting was laid on a solid foundation. I can say that thanks in great part of the honesty that I realize Homage embodies. The Homage that I grew to know as DJ Pon 3 was and is the real Homage. Not all of her, granted, and not without trappings, but real all the same.
I want more. I want more. I want friendship. Where's the friendship? Where's it hiding? Where is it? Where's the friends? I'm Batman.
I'm just kidding. Sorry. Playing all those Batman games has really screwed with my mind a little bit.
Joker.
Homage knows of me at my best, but has also seen me at my worst, and instead of being scared away, she has embraced me and let me in. She has held and comforted me, and she has done so much more, allowing me in intimacy that I had only daydreamed about before, and usually to private shame. With Homage, I don't feel ashamed. Oh man, that was a final. You had a dream about a creepy horse and you woke up? Well, that was freaking creepy. What do you expect? What do you expect to happen? Creepy horse? God, that was weird. What a weird dream. That was sure creepy.
Batman, I caught a little Pokemon.
Man, Joker. Batman, I caught a little Pokemon, Batman. I got the panini, Batman. I forget whatever. Was it? What do you call the bunny one? I forget what you called the bunny. I caught the Pokemon, Batman! Having seen the memories of Steel Hooves, a melancholy realization had crept into my thoughts. He was still Lopunny? I caught a Lopunny, Batman! Or something like that, I don't know. Only my companions who was been in a similar relationship. Yet unless Calamity and Velvet Remedy was managed to be up in things with a far greater degree of sneakiness and stealth than I attribute to either of them. Like me, I had a companion whom he could trust to be open and honest with him. And like me, he chose to keep things from her. I am quite sure he did not reveal to Applejack the murder he committed, whereas in my case, I have kept from Homage. Well, another murder Steel Hooves committed. Lopunny. Oh, that could be it. Look, Batman, I got a Lopunny, Batman. I know the one it was talking about. I know what you're talking about, though. Thinking on these things, I suddenly found the parallel downright creepy. Steel Hooves once told me that I would learn that he wasn't a better pony, which I certainly have seen as true, just like she did, and while I can only guess at what befell the relationship, I do know that he and Applejack were together the day the bombs fell, and I must assume they at least worked at mending any damage his dark secrets had caused, and I also know that ultimately she left him. She chose her family over him, and she left him behind. Little punny Batman. Batman, look! I caught a little pony, Batman!
No, Joker! No, Joker, what are you doing?
Oh man, I can't. It's too funny. relationships. I do know they and Applejack were together in the day the bombs fell. I must assume they at least worked at mending any damage his dark secrets had caused, and I also know that ultimately she left him. She chose her family over him, and she left him behind. And he's been living with that abandonment for 200 years. 200 years! Alone, with an aching heart and a sense of unease, I found myself desperately needing to talk to Homage. With any luck, I would be able to do so as soon as my friends had the override installed. I wondered if I would be able to speak to her just by talking to the air, but from what I had heard, it seemed more like that. I would need to get to the station myself to have real communication with her. Either way, I was determined to come clean, for better or for worse. Unlike the hobbies and distractions of my lonely youth, friendship really can fill the void enough for a pony to be happy, and while I wouldn't normally consider my experiences in the equestrian wasteland to be a happy ones, I really have been happier out here than I ever was in Stable 2. Yeah, right? Being with friends in a blanket against the cold, a bulwark that makes you stronger. A connection that makes you bigger. Without friends, I was exposed, weak, and small. And on an unrelated note, itchy! Chain link fencing crackled with energy surrounding a barricade out a gate. Guards watched with amusement as the slaver pulled my wagon up the wall. Only one? A guard mare called out. She was heavily barded and wore a battle saddle bearing 4 combat shotguns. The sight made me cringe. 4 shotguns? That's a little overkill. A whole wagon for just one. Been slacking, Nash? The slaver pulling my wagon just grunted. I scratched at my neck and with a hind hoof and tried not to wince every time the wagon jolted as it rolled over the broken rocky streets. I unrealistically hoped that slaves were given baths. And such a small one, too. A guard buck in similar barding called out. I noticed that I couldn't see any weapons on him, save for his horn and hooves. I wonder if that made him less or more dangerous. If it wasn't a unicorn, I'd say toss it back in the lake. Itching badly, I really wish I would be tossed in the lake. It occurred to me, however, that this was the first time a slaver had suggested unicorns were considered an extra valuable prize. Not entirely surprising, considering that the unicorns of Stable 2 were often expected to go into technical works thanks to the fine manipulation our magic allowed. I wondered what work Red Eye was putting us to. I'd probably find out soon enough. I know, 4 shotguns, that's a little excessive, right? You're gonna kill your target point blank, and then some. You're gonna clear the whole hallway. Well, quadruple combat shotgun pony kept aim on me. Her male counterpart threw a lever, killing the electric crackle of the chain link fence. He hoofed a bun and a section of the fence began to roll open with a considerable clatter. Quadruple combat shotgun pony continued to keep her battle saddle trained on me. A single unicorn pony shackled and caged, as did 2 snipers hidden within steel bunker towers on either side of the wall's inner gate. The heads of patrol ponies could be seen walking the perimeter of the wall on a raised platform just behind it. Even knowing me, it felt like a ridiculous amount of overkill. Bro, this place is giving me bad vibes. What a bad vibe. This place, what a bad vibe. I know, right? Quadruple shotgun, pony murder, whatever. A griffin arched overhead, checking out the latest arrival, and flew away laughing. By the you-know-who, Nash, when I first saw this one, I thought you'd bucked your horseshoes and actually brought in a filly. The mare snickered, making me feel every smaller. I was thinking maybe I ought to blow your head off before Stern got a hold of you. Nash, my chauffeur, merely grunted again. What's this? A guard buck asked, peering in at me. His horn glowed and jagged rusty spear jutted between the bars at me. I cringed back. The unicorn frowned at me and tipped the spear so the head of it caught on the blood-soaked wrappings around my pit buck and pulled it away. Crap, I wasn't even in the gate and the plan was falling apart. Oh, he said with a smiling grunt. think you're a clever pony, do you? He gave me a cruel leer. Let's see how clever you feel inside. Inside, oh god, I wondered who with a shot of panic or just let me through the gate. The guardman shot him a look and gave a cruel laugh. Oh, please do it. Hell. Here, let me help. Oh, no!
No. No. We don't approve of this.
Okay, what? I felt suddenly thankful for the infested hay. The buck backed with a fearful look, then scowled at the mare. You'd really enjoy that, wouldn't you? More than life itself. What a disgusting couple. I know, there's a lot of unhinged dialogue in this. I'm glad I can just skip over it. Freaking raiders, dude. I hate them. Bah, he hit the button to close the outer gate and waved a hoof towards the sniper ponies. Lit it through. He gave me one more look and then, barely containing revulsion, his eyes moved to my pit buck, now partially visible through the wrappings. Oh, and tag her to see Doc Slaughter. She's got one of them leg terminals that are a bitch to get off. For a pony who had been so sorely disappointed that she had a pit buck for a cutie mark, I was remarkably terrified at the thought I might lose it. As best as I could parse the buck's attitude, these slavers had seen pit bucks before and had ways to remove them. Now, this will be on the quiz. What do I hate the most about this story? You'll figure it out. Be sure to phrase it exactly. Yeah, right. Question 150. It's going to be a timed exam too, by the way. You'll only have so long to answer each question as best as you can. I'm thinking 2 hours. I'm thinking of 2 hours. 2 hours and 30 minutes. That should be more than enough. And you're going to be proctored too, probably. You're going to have to share your screen as you take the test. Let's just keep making it worse. Let's see. What was the name of the first griffin we met in this story? You're on the clock, folks. Yeah, I read this story. I'm pretty sure it was God. Nah, I'm pretty sure it's God. I'm very certain it was God.
You failed.
Anyways, who wants to go see Doc Slaughter? For a pony who had been so sorely disappointed that she had a pit buck for a cue and was remarkably terrified at the thought I might lose it as best could parse bucks out to the slave of pony before, had ways to remove. Yes, coughing. I hate coughing. Coughing sucks. I hate phlegm. The buck threw the lever and the fence around us once again crackled and hummed. With a rending grind, the huge metal inner gate of the wall began to lower on a massive chains, a drawbridge complete with moat on the inner side of the wall. My pit buck began to click urgently as it picked up radiation seeping out of the sludge. The wall was clearly meant to keep any pony from getting out as much as prevent ponies from getting in. Beyond, I got my first glimpse of the inner city, Philadelphia. Slave masters stood guard over mesh-covered work pits, wearing barding and gas masks, pointing weapons down to where poor ponies labored beyond the point of exhaustion. I couldn't tell what they were doing, but I could tell they were filthy, sick, and trembling. A chimney rose out of the nearest work pit. Hellish red-tinted exhaust poured out of it. I gagged on the stench of unwashed ponies and noxious fumes. You go straight from an A to a B minus. Just like that. An A plus to a B minus, just like that. A chimney rose or a swath of bright yellow, yeah. A swath of bright yellow fluttered around the chimney before punching a nearby rubble. Pyrolite. She cocked her head at me. Yo, Pyrolite showed up! Dang, dude. We love Pyrolite. Pyrolite is cool. Behold, called out the voice of the Red Eye. We stand on the threshold of a new dawn. With every factory we recover, every mill we rebuild, we move one big step forward towards an Equestria where our children can live in the safety and comfort of modern cities. Not grovel in dilapidated ruins of the past, but the stone and glass and steel forged by these, we can rebuild the homes and towers and lanes of mass transportation that will bestow freedom and prosperity upon generations to come. This, my children, is the very last generation that needs to cringe in caves and scramble for 200-year-old scraps of food. The Philadelphia broadcast poured out of speakers everywhere. The messages and music were non-stop, the constant companion of both slave masters and slaves. Nash pulled the wagon past several more work pits before drawing to a stop in what had once been a chariot lot. I coughed. My pitbuck was not shy about informing me that the gas pouring out of the work pit smokestacks was poisonous. The guards had gas masks, but they apparently couldn't spare any for the slaves. I trembled with anger. The rate of attrition here must be unconscionable. The lot was full of cage wagons, most of them recently emptied by other wagon pullers who are amassing slaves in an open area of the pavement. The gate I had come through was not the only one, and I was not the only new arrival. Nash opened the cage and stuck his head in, biting on the chain between my shackles and hauling me roughly out. I was dragged into a throng of suffering ponies, each of whom had clearly been through weeks of torment before even getting here. A large black griffin in dark gray talon barding landed on the roof adjacent to the chariot lot and turned her white feathered head to scowl at us. Above her head rose a banner that fluttered in the wind, the Red Eye flag. She had a whip curled under one wing and an anti-machine rifle strapped to her back. The work is hard, yes, Red Eye's voice continued on the nearest speaker as the griffins above scanned the miserable groups of ponies beneath her, but only through a generous gift of our efforts can our children and our children's children have a better world. We must selflessly give all we can so that a new Equestria may rise, and that is not an easy thing to ask. Honestly, Red Eye, I don't see much asking going on. Tribals care only about their own small groups, unable or unwilling to view a larger picture. Raiders and Steel Rangers are the epitome of shellfishness, caring only for their own base desires and outdated codes, taking what they want from the rest of us and giving nothing back. But here today and every day, we give back, we create. Where others only know how to tear down, we build. And that, my children, is how we pave the way for... One of the other wagon pullers shouted at us, making many ponies cringe, and one actually burst into tears. Make yourselves presentable, you worthless mules. The griffin's expression suddenly turned from something resembling a mild contempt to cold anger. She drew the massive anti-machine rifle faster than I would have the thought possible. The report of the gun was like a righteous anger of Luna. The wagon puller was ripped in two, the bullet punching through the asphalt and burying itself deep in the ground. A few of the ponies screamed. A magenta mare with an orange mane began backpedaling, trying to keep her hooves out of the spreading pool of blood. Her terror-stricken face splattered with what looked like part of the dead slaver's stomach lining. Beautiful. No clue. Not right now. I'm not too sure. We are not animals, we are not zebras, we are ponies. We have a better nature and a higher calling. We know that the road is hard, and yet we stand and face the challenge. We know that many of us may suffer and perish and never taste the sweet fruits of our labor, but out of generosity and hope, we give ourselves anyways. so that others may know a better future, because that future is worthy of any sacrifices. And yes, New Equestria does demand sacrifices. Okay, but pony sacrifices? Red-Eye's speech ended. The music began again, uplifting and regal. The griffin looked not at us, but at the cowering slavers. You do not interrupt when Red-Eye is talking. She then turned to us. My name is Stern, the griffin stated, looking down on her new slaves, and this is my town. Uh-oh. Well, I think we know how Stern is. But, psh. Hilarious. You are workers, Stern informed us as she paced along the rooftop above. You work towards the building of a brighter tomorrow, towards the new Equestria, which will be populated by the Unity. Your work is the gift that you give to the future, and you can either give it willingly, or Red-Eye will give it for you. I found myself conflicted. I see that the treatment of the slaver ponies, which amounted to nothing short of slow and torturous murder, and yet I understood Red-Eye's goal. Maybe not all of it. The whole Unity thing was getting downright creepy, but the progress, the striving to make the world a better place at any cost, the same drive had left me flank deep in blood, and I was not apologetic for it. Ah, it's a she-grumpy. It's a grumpy, stern she. Red-Eye will put you to work doing things we probably should be working together towards anyway, although by choice and in safer conditions. Me? I'll put a bullet through your head if you are screwing around, murdering blight on pony kind. In both cases, we had decided that ponies who don't choose to live their lives the right way had forfeited their right to live freely, if at all. There was a difference. There was a line between Red-Eye and me. It just wasn't as thick as I would have liked. Even so, it didn't change the pain I was seeing and hearing all around me, and that these horrors had to stop. But most of you don't really care about the future, do you? I can see it in your eyes. You don't give a crap about other ponies. You just care about your freedom. Well then, listen closely, because I'm going to tell you how to free yourselves, Stern said, her voice gruff in disgust and conviction. Part of me wanted to cry out that I did care, but a much stronger part of me listened intently. Unless I could find a screwdriver in an unguarded place to hide, this might be my best chance. You earn it. Of course you do, I thought, but Stern was quick to expand on the concept. You can toil in the mills and the factories and the workhouses until you drop, or you can volunteer for more dangerous jobs. Those who do are rewarded. Red-Eye is a very generous stallion. He gives you 3 options. The griffin held the 3 razor-sharp talons and began ticking them down. You can choose to work on a stable recovery team. There are a lot of stables in the Philadelphia area, each rich in resources, but stables tend to be dangerous. They often have their own security or their own unique dangers. I shuddered, feeling a fresh wave of fury. The griffin scowled, and of course there are the Steel Rangers, who are also after the same prizes. And before you start getting any wrong ideas, let me warn you, the Steel Rangers have adopted a slaughter-first attitude towards anyone that stands in their way of reclaiming old Stable-Tech property for themselves. They will slaughter you just as quickly as they will slaughter us, and in those rare cases wherein the stables still have living residents, they usually slaughter them too. At least Red-Eye gives them the same options he gives you. Oh, they're all the grumpies. My eyes went wide, my jaw dropping. Ludwig with her horn. Gosh, dude, they really love being quite vulgar in their languages. You work 2 years on a stable recovery team and survive, and Red-Eye promises you freedom. You'll be tagged and will be allowed to live whatever life you chose. The griffin gave a knowing smirk, so long as you don't decide to become a bother. 2 years, that was not an option. But I wasn't really thinking about that. I was thinking about how Blueberry Saber and I were going to have the same very, very harsh words. I was already considering what ammo to use as punctuation. Curling her second claw, Stern continued, You can work in the Philadelphia crater. Red-Eye has need of radioactive materials, and that crater is a treasure trove of them. If Blueberry Saber was to be believed, and it would have been stupid for her to lie about my objectives. Then I knew why Red Eye was mining the crater. He needed material for his rad engine. But working at ground zero of a mega spell strike, even in radioactive protected boarding, that was a death sentence. Red Eye has stated that any pony who works for 6 months worth of full work days in the Philadelphia crater will be treated for radiation sickness and freed. A falsely kind smile across her beak, but since he is such a charitable stallion, Red Eye has recently reduced it to only 4 months. I suspected most ponies suffered fatal poisoning within 3. Your third option, Stern informed us, holding up the remaining talon, is to fight in the pit. The pit is arena combat, pony against pony. Each event has 6 rounds, and there is usually an event once every week, more if Red Eye himself grazes us with his presence. The griffin stared down at us, assessing the pathetic herd of new slaves. If you survive 6 consecutive events, not only do you gain your beloved freedom, but you gain an honored place in Red Eye's army. She stood up tall, glowering, but frankly, none of you lot look worthy of such an honor. The black-bodied griffin snorted still. I am honor-bound to give you the option. Just try not to make it too easy for your opponent if you do. Then scowling yet again at us, she warned, these are the ways to earn your freedom, but there are 2 more ways to gain it. You may at any time choose to join the Unity. If you do, your fate will be in the hooves of the goddess. She said the word as if it was distasteful. Or of course you can gain freedom through death. Try anything stupid, try to rebel, try to fight, try to run. Any of those are fine ways to die horribly. Stern fixed us all with a stare, but that is all they are. Welcome to the Philadelphia Fun Farm. A weathered, oversized image of Pinkie Pie's head and forehoofs peeked over the top of the arched wrought iron gateway. Beyond lay the decaying ruins of what had once been a massive amusement park. I remembered it from the poster in Steel Hoof's shack. Everything the Grand Galloping Gala should have been. Every day forever. We were herded through the gateway. A fair bulk of the old amusement park had been converted into the slavers' quarters. I'd been assigned a straw mat somewhere in an enclosure where ponies once galloped around in mock-ups of plow wagons, ramming into each other for fun. Being new, I didn't rate 4 walls, only a roof, and I was told to be glad for that. The rain in Philadelphia, they warned me, burned. Yeah. On the path up to the gateway, I had spotted slaves harnessed to actual plow wagons pushing mounds of rubble as they pulled a chariot behind them, carrying the slave master pony who whipped them if they weren't going fast enough, or if the slave master liked the sounds, the poor pony made them struck brutally with the lash. Or if she was just bored. You know, tomato, tomato, whichever comes first. If you get bored, you get bored. I wonder if any of those tortured ponies spent their nights sleeping in the bumper plow pit. Sometimes irony sucked. Once colts and fillies would drag their parents from miles around to romp and play in the silly rides and spectacles of Philadelphia Fun Farm provided. Now, it was a monstrous monument to slavery and death, wrapped in garish peeling paint. Pinkie Pie wouldn't approve. Above us, 3 Pinkie Pie balloons floated in constant orbit. Not sure about that. I'm not sure. No, I don't think it's the exactly fun farm everyone thinks it is. Bloated. 3 Pinkie Pie balloons floated in constant orbit over the decayed amusement park. One moved freely, the other 2 were anchored, one apiece, to the 2 tallest buildings still standing within the curtain of the wall. The first was leashed to an old hotel, beaten but unbroken, which towered just a few blocks beyond the eastern edge of the Philadelphia Fun Farm. The huge lettering on the 20th floor balcony was nearly rusted away and had long ago lost its lighting, but even without it, I could have recognized the Alpha Omega Hotel from its small picture in that old news article I'd seen a couple of days ago. No, I don't need a rock. I'm good.
Rocks are boring. I ain't no mod. The second Pinkie Pie balloon was bound to a building rising under the fun farm itself. It was clearly stylized as a barn, looking like nothing so much as a colossal version of the old building on Sweet Apple Acres. The first floors were covered in gaily colored murals and fairy tale characters, most of which had slid from the principle of childlike frivolity, I guess, into the valley of disturbing imagery. The roller coaster that looped all about the amusement park actually passed through the building on the 6th floor. A huge radio tower jutted up from the top, modified to look like a comically oversized weather vane. No, they aren't in America. All of the towns and crud in the shows are named after real locations, just replaced with pony terms. Philadelphia, you know? Philadelphia. Like every show in, like, every location of a town in the show is pretty much named after a real place, just replaced with a horse term somewhere in it. I realized I was looking at Philadelphia, hub of the Ministry of Morale. I should have known Pinkie Pie and her ministry had created the Sprite Bots. The source of the Sprite Bots broadcast had to be the ministry hub somewhere. It wasn't powerful enough to reach all the way to Manhattan. See, Manhattan, horse term, boom. Both each Sprite Bot rebroadcasted, the signal of the Ministry of Morale's reach had been effectively infinite. When Red Eye had taken the hub, he had simply added his sermons to the playlist. The music itself was the same songs that the Ministry of Morale had been broadcasting since before the war. Balloons tower defense? As if mocking me for my revelation, the plucky harp-scored number playing over the speakers suffered a suddenly influx of lyrics. You gotta share, you gotta care, it's the right thing to do. I really wanted a gun. Oh look, called out a blood-red mare whose dark green mane was done up in spikes. She was lounging on the spectator railing of the bumper plow arena. Fresh meat! The slave-master ponies walked with us, took their leave. Nash gave me a parting look that I couldn't interpret. Then we were alone with other slaves. Many paid us no mind. Most of that even spared us a glance did with sad, resigned expressions. I felt sickened at the sight of several of them. Many were shedding their manes and coats, revealing boils or discolored flesh beneath, or suffered from weathered limbs or sloughing facial features, I guess. I don't know. The slowly dying victims of radiation poisoning. And then there were the bullies. The blood-red mare slid from the railing and stalked towards us. Listen up, my little grub worms, she barked. Oh, that's so something I would say. God dang it, I hate it. Not as insulting, of course. Grub worms, that's a little demoralizing. She barked, her cutie mark looked like an eyeball on a pike. I shuddered, wondering just how I'll end up getting that as a cutie mark. Blueberry Saber had warned that I might have more to fear from the inmates than the guards. Oh yeah, I'm not surprised there. That's a no-brainer. Another pony joined her, a hulking piss-colored male with an ugly scar and the cutie mark of a very angry yellow flower. I got the absurd feeling that the flower wanted to kill me. The school in Stable 2 had bullies, and these ponies reminded me of them. No matter how powerless we all were, they could find the power by making the rest of us even more miserable. It was compatible at best. With every pony suffering, I felt it was vile that some of the slaves themselves would go out of their way to make it worse for others. I had learned that the best way to gain strength was through friendship. Shouldn't we all be working together? But this was faster and easier for the selfish. I know, right? Very, very specific. Now, are we talking clear? Are we talking... Well, I guess they did say yellow, I guess. Never mind. What I said was completely useless and stupid. Yeah, but yeah, very, very descriptive.
Shouldn't we all be working together? But this was the school and stable too had bullies, and these ponies reminded me of them. No matter how powerless we all were, they could find power by making the rest of us even more miserable, as compatible at best with every pony's suffering. Most vile the slaves themselves would go out of their way to make it worse for others. I learned that best way to gain strength was through friendship. Shouldn't we all be working together? But this was faster and easier for the selfish. I'm Blood, the appropriately colored mare with the spiked mane announced, then introducing the other muscled buck. And this is Daff. The lug stared at us, his eyes lingering on the mares. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about now. Oh man. I'm Blood, the appropriately colored mare with a spiked mane announced, and I already read that. I know y'all just heard Stern's big spiel, but how Philadelphia is her town, Blood said, which I bet she wouldn't have dared if the Griffin was anywhere nearby. Well, the bumper plow pit is our domain. What a glorious empire you have there, I snarked under my breath before I could stop myself. Blood looked like he'd been slapped. Excuse me? He trotted up, eyes narrowing. Did you just talk? Because it sounded like you talked. I don't remember telling you to. Why couldn't I keep my mouth shut? Well, at least maybe if she kicked the crap out of me, she'd manage to crush all the biting bugs in my coat while she was at it. Oh, well, that sounds satisfying. You know what? That might be more beneficial than a net negative. Then again, maybe it was a good thing that I'd gotten her attention. If I became the bully's new chew toy, then that would spare the other slaves at least some of their attentions. I'd faced a dragon. I couldn't take the crap these two could dish. Okay, I ran away from a dragon, but that's just getting nitpicky. Well, did you just talk? Blood demanded, sticking her snout against mine. She had to lower her head a little to do so, something I could see she enjoyed. My small stature made me a particularly appealing target. I just said, what a glorious empire you have. You know, the crumbling amusement park ride. I stammered, cringing back. You must be so proud. Her eyes widened. Oh, you are begging me to mess you up. She lifted up a hoof and brought it down on the chain of my manacles, driving my face into the dirt. Okay, Philly. This is life from now on. You speak when I tell you to speak. You lick where I tell you to lick. And you give me half of your food rations every night. And maybe, just maybe, I'll keep you for myself rather than letting Daffy have every lunar damn night until he splits you in two. Oh, that's horrible. I looked up at her, putting on a pitiful expression. Oh my god. Yeah, for real, word. the riz, the charisma. Oh my gosh. Dav, she called back to the piss-colored brute. Fuck up her bad. That is horrible. The lumbering buck approached me with a very nasty grip with pleasure spot and kicked hard. Pain explored through my breast. I found myself flying back through the air. I crashed through the rotted remains of what had once been a hot dog stand with a picture of Pinkie Pie slathered on with mustard. Yeah, right? Exactly. Freaking horrible. You lick where I tell you to lick. Yeah, it's freaking awful. It's awful. It's god awful. I was struggling to get onto my feet when he slammed me into me in a full gallop, sending me sprawling. I thought I heard a rib crack. Breathing was becoming painful. Oh yeah, it's getting pretty bad. Yeah, honestly, y'all ever wonder why Little Pip felt like they just had to go to this location specifically? Like, what W do you get from this place? What not an L are you leaving with? You know? Like, I swear, we're only, like, I swear this is the only tip of the iceberg of the kind of crud I'm going to read. I swear it's gonna get a lot worse here. Caught my breath, read without armor. I was afraid he'd break my back, so I twisted. He compensated, his hooves coming down in my stomach, knocking any wind I had out of me. I coughed, tasting blood. The huge bug pushes. Oh, no, screw that. Softly, I wrapped a very tender part of him in a telekinetic sheath and gave him a warning squeeze. Woo, saucy. Daff stopped abruptly. Oh, I hate this. Here's the deal, I whispered, half moaning in pain. You decide I'm not worthy of your attentions. That way you get to save face. And in return, I don't show you just how good I am at this particular trick. It's quite the story. It's a chemical cocktail, that's for sure. It's a very unique story. Don't you read it for a while, you'll realize that kind of lingo is here to stay. Anyway. Oh, it can. Yeah, you're absolutely right. At times, it absolutely is. You're absolutely right. At times, it definitely is. I absolutely hate it. I hate it. But it's got its moments that make it enjoyable to read. So, yeah. Unfortunately, I'm gonna keep on going because I want to finish this series already. Running someone away from all the slaves, the deal's off, slightly bit tightened up from team spilled from his eyes, and he tried not to scream. Deal? I asked, even though I knew he had already agreed, as I gave the kinetic field a slight twist. His reaction was utterly worth it. Yeah, always the wrong time to join. It's always the wrong time to join this series. Good, I growled. My mouth tasted warm copper and released him, dropping my head back as my vision swam. I needed medical pony. I needed velvet remedy. That's so true. Shaking himself, Daff made a show of staring me up and down, then dismissing me with a huff. Fuck that, he said too loudly. She's so tiny it would be like, oh, screw that. He turned around, Blood was looking at him with one eye narrowed in disbelief. That is, see, unhinged. This story is unhinged. Dav glanced back over his shoulder at me, snorted apparently, deciding what he could and couldn't get away with. He drove his right hind hoof back with a gruesomely hard half buck that landed directly between my high legs and trotted away, basking in the blood-colored mare's obvious approval. I never screamed so hard in my life. What a fun story. What do you mean what you saw? What the heck did you see? I've walked through the streets of Philadelphia cleared of rubble and then seen steel mill producing steel, the textiles mill producing cloth, the power plant producing power. Red-Eye's voice sounded proud through the tinny speakers on steel poles that jutted into the ruddy evening air. It is a start. But such a glorious start, and we owe it all to each other. Oh, it needs a lot of holy water. It needs a lot of baptization. Honestly, this happens commonly when we get raiders and scumbags involved. And to be fair, you know what? It makes sense being the wasteland and all that crud. As much as I hate it, as much as I absolutely loathe it, it's the reality we live in, you know? We all take footsteps to get where we are, and unfortunately, I think I took a bit too many. 'Cause here I am. What is this? I asked, half whimpering, as a bowl of discernible mush stuff was shoved in front of my nose. The smell made me deeply bruised, stomach convulsed in revulsion. Oatmeal, the slave pony claimed flatly, scoping up a bowl full of some discolored glop for the next pony. Oatmeal? Are you crazy? I stared in disbelief. This doesn't look anything like oatmeal. Or smell. Or... that is another portion of the muck slowed from ladle to bowl. Sound. Oh, it's absolutely enjoyable to read, don't get me wrong. I absolutely love it. It has some really, really fun moments. Like, every now and then it makes me die a little inside, but then it usually makes up for it later on. It pays off. It balances out. It's like 75-25. Oatmeal, the slave pony claims loudly, skipping about oatmeal, you created I read that. I gave half of the oatmeal to Blood, feeling like I was the one being cruel. Then I implied around until I found another pony had been bullied out of his share and gave him the rest. I was in too much pain in tender places, including my stomach, to attempt eating anyway. In turn, he gave me a very depressing advice on continuing existence as a worker in Philadelphia. Don't choose the crater. Most ponies who go there don't live even 3 months, much less 4. Don't choose the pit. You'll have to survive as many as 36 battles against other slaves to make it, and the battles were always to the death. I moaned at that. I couldn't see myself taking the life of another slave. Well, maybe Blood and Dav, but not the innocent ones. He himself worked in the scrapyards using a tool he called an auto axe. Oh, what a fun name! To cut apart chariots and other large hunks of metal from melting down in the steel mill. It was dangerous work, and they were kept under supervision by guards in high places. But they weren't any whips. No slave master was going to get into a scrapyard with the slave wielding a spinning blade magically enchanted to slash easily through metal. He regaled me with many ways to die in Philadelphia. Dumb ways to die, so many dumb ways to die. One of the least pleasant was the work pits. I had seen on the way in, but fortunately, he said, those are reserved for ponies who try to escape or worse, sabotage Red Eye's work. What are they? Philadelphia has a bit of a parasprite problem, the pony told me as he ate the remainder of my glop. Apparently there was a massive infestation maybe 3 or 4 decades before the mega spell supposedly. They wiped it out, but parasprites are really persistent. He licked the bowl while I tried not to gag. Couple years back, Red Eye's bucks were blasting their way into one of the stables that was pretty close to Crater and cleared open a pocket full of the damn things, all irradiated to hell and nastier than ever. Bloat sprites? I asked, but he shook his head. Nah, bloat sprites is what happened to the parasprites that got themselves tainted. Big and mean, they don't tend to reproduce, and that's a blessing, you trust me on that. He looked at me gravely. These little buggers are irradiated, big difference. So what do? Same thing they've always done, eat and spit out more. The pony fixed me with a stare. Only now, they're carnivorous. They eat ponies? Oh, Celestia. And those chimneys? The buck cocked his head. Well, that's where we incinerate the nests they find. Only way to make sure they stop reproducing is to kill them with fire, he scowled. Problem is, sometimes there are ones deep in the nest that don't get properly cooked by the exterminators. They wake up from the heat, fly out, the mesh over the work pits, make sure they don't get too far, and one of the guards always has a flamethrower, especially after that one mare had one of them buggies fly into her throat. They ate her from the inside out. That almost sounds like a story we literally just read. How convenient is that? Pure nightmare fuel. I wish I could unhear that. But as bad as that was, on the top of the list of ways to die was Unity. You missed a chapter and however far we are in from over here. So we're about, I guess, 1/4 of a chapter. But currently, rough idea is Little Pip is now playing as a slave for a little bit. I know that bastard Red Eye says, but I've known plenty of ponies who volunteered for Unity, and not one of them ever came back. He confided in me. According to ponies, the goddess, whatever that's supposed to be, is turning them into those big alicorn critters we sometimes see hereabouts. But if that's was true, then I figured there would be a lot more of them. And you'd think one of them bothered come back and say hello to old friends, being as they can fly and all. I didn't think it helpful to tell him that they were probably more of them than he thought. My mind was already processing the other information. The pseudo-goddesses had no cutie marks and were at least guided through a telepathic source. My mind reeled at the possibility that transformation removed their individuality and sense of self completely. Doing that to a pony would be worse than murder. Oh, there you go. That's always got to be nice. Night was chilly and I had no blanket. I lay on the rat-chewed old mat which had been bed to slaves before me, most of whom were probably dead now. The mat was so worn it felt harder than the cement beneath it, and so stained that I didn't really want to touch it, but it was all I had. My body was badly bruised and it still ached to breathe. My rib had been cracked, but thankfully not broken. I tried wholeheartedly to ignore the worst of the lower pain. Part of me wanted to kill Daff as painfully and bloodily as possible. Part of me wanted to curl up and cry. I fought down both, considering what I did and threatened to do to the piss-colored bastard. I think part of me wanted to show that I could take what I was willing to dish out. Mostly, though, I had told him he could save face as much as I hated it. I had to acknowledge that is exactly what he did. The sky above was black with reflected tinges of orange and red. With the fall of night, all the forges and fires and other glowing things were more pronounced, giving the Philadelphia ruins an infernal cast. The worst was the subtle red tinge to the air that becomes a luminescent glow within the massive pit where the mega spells carrying missiles had struck. Missing the massive industrial sectors of the city to find the heart of civilian housing, darkness was never truly fell in the core of the Philadelphia crater. A gust of wind brought a deeper chill and choking acrid smell with it from somewhere deeper in Philadelphia. A few of the other slaves coughed in their sleep. I shivered and tried to breathe without inhaling. I missed my friends. I wondered if they were okay. In my mind, I had begun playing through all the mistakes I had made, all the ways my plan could have gone wrong. Somewhere not far away, I caught sight of a small burst of green flame. Getting up, I slipped quietly out, bringing up my eyes toward Sparkle to help me find the Balefire Phoenix. My heart felt thankful for the company as I spotted her perched on a sign shaped like a smiling Pinkie Pie, holding up a hoof. You must be this tall to ride the Fun Farm reel. Behind her, the massive iron structure of the wheel rose above the park like a mechanical eye watched us balefully. Pyrelight hooted musically at me. Thank you, I told her earnestly. I didn't think I could make it through this trial alone. I considered asking her questions or requesting that she ferry a message to Velvet Remedy or half a dozen other things that I dismissed in turn. Instead, I chose to just sit there, resting my head against the two-dimensional Pinkie Pie and enjoying her company. Well, let's put you to work, Mr. Shiny said, looking me over. Mr. Shiny was the slave master pony in charge of assigning work to new slaves, and I thought he had a deceptively kindly voice. I see you've got a pit buck, and you should be tagged for a visit to Dr. Slaughter. But I figure we can hold off on that. He gave me a smile that seemed personable, but had no real warmth. What do you say we put that thing to use instead? Honestly, I would like to know that too. I'm pretty sure this is the longest MOP fanfic of all time, right? That's what I've heard, I think. But in terms of genres all around, I have no clue. I was still terribly sore and walked with a slight limp, but he didn't seem to notice, or at least not care. I was sure he'd put ponies to work who are in much worse shape. What do I have to do? Well, there's a building in town that's been infested with parasprites, but this time we can't just go in with flamethrowers. So we could use a pony with a pit buck, Mr. Shiny explained. That thing can spot targets for you, right? We'll send you in there in environmental barding, and with a low-powered magical energy gun, shoot the damn things until they're piles of ash. They're just gonna send you in there with like a hazmat suit and a laser gun, bro. Exterminating just got put on a whole new level. How many are there? The fretful nightmares of the night before replayed themselves in my mind. You know, the fact that the parasprites eat ponies. Shouldn't even be more than 50. They haven't had anything to snack on since the infestation was discovered. Poor Whitetail, oh my god. Within half an hour, he had me equipped and ready to go, except for ammo. I'd get that after I entered the building. They'd shove it through a mail slot. Oh my god. I know, right? Oh my god. Beams of bright magenta magical energy laced through the air at me from the security turret in the hallway ceiling. One of the blasts struck my environmental suit, melting a hole in the size of a hoof just below my cutie mark and burning my flesh underneath. As I threw myself behind a desk, I hoped it wouldn't scar like the slash on my neck. The terminal on the desk glowed softly, that same sickly pale green that almost all of them did. I hid myself behind it as I began to hack the system. It only took me a moment. The terminal's security was pathetic, and I was in luck. The terminal could shut down the turrets. The turret lit loose another barrage of pink energy. Several lancing bolts struck the backside of the terminal, exploded in my face with a blast of sparks. I would have been permanently blinded if not outright killed, had the environmental suit not included a gas mask and heavy goggles. I cringed back behind the desk and considered my options. Until now, the bug hunt was more frustrating than dangerous. The barding had made me effectively immune to the parasprites, and I had become so practiced in the art of stealth that I could almost sneak right up behind one before the half-blind thing spotted me, which was good since I had almost no skill with magical energy weapons, even at close range. Even with sats, I missed as often as I hit. Oh my god. That sounds horrid. That sounds absolutely god-awful. Jeez, that sounds freaking horrible, dude. As the turret spewed out, wait, what? Where was I? Bug hunters were first. The turret spewed out more barrage. Third. As the turret spewed out another barrage, a little yellow parasprite flew towards me, drawn by the smell of my burned flesh. I slipped into sats as it drew close, aiming the laser and firing. I hit it with the third shot, and it disintegrated in a flash of turquoise ash. I dropped the targeting spell and then kicked it back up a second later to help me take two more parasprites, one of which was approximately the color of dead flesh. Dang. I think I'm in trouble. I checked the magical spark pack. Those second two had taken me 5 shots to vaporize. Better, but still not good. According to my Pitbuck's initial scan, there were 52 sprites in the building that I had to wipe out, and I had just killed parasprites numbered 19 through 21. That left 31 more to go, most of which I knew were swarming around the building's factory floor, an area I had been avoiding, choosing to clear out the rest of the building first. Only now, they smelled flesh. I had 7 shots left. Really in trouble. The turret poured out even more magical energy, trying to strike me down, not smart enough to realize there was a whole big metal desk in the way. The desk was getting warm to the touch. If I didn't find more ammo in this place, or even better, another weapon, I opened the desk just to check. Bottle caps! 3 of them! I let out a scream of frustration. I looked around, spotting a door marked maintenance nearby. Wrapped in the desk in a field of levitation, I carried it alongside me as a shield while I dashed for the door. It was locked. It was locked. I still didn't have a screwdriver. Looking towards the heavens, if either of you two are actually up there, I'm really sorry for doubting. Really sorry. I apologize. Now, could you please send me a break? The turret fired again. The desk was no longer just warm. It was beginning to radiate heat. 3 more parasprites flew into the room, drawn to the smell. Well then, fuck you two, both of you, I shouted upwards. Go lick each other's. I slid into sats and sent a flurry of targeting spell guided shots at the parasprites. 2 turned to ash. The third was struck, falling to the floor but not dying. The other shots missed, and now I was out.
I panted, my rib injury burning and making it hurt to breathe. Damn it. The turret fired again. The desk was now glowing in frustration. I snapped. You want this so much? Here, take it. Keeping the desk between me and the turret, I floated it up to the offending machine and slammed it at it over and over until it stopped working with a crunch. I then floated it past me the other way, flipping it over and dropping the glowing metal surface on the wounded blue bug. I managed to close myself in an office against the building's main floor. The hallway that the turret had been protecting had led to this room, the equivalent of an overmare's office. There was a small door on one side that probably led to a closet and massive plate glass, windows that looked out over the main work area. I stared out one of the windows at the mess of cute, colorful predators swarming between the catwalks above and printing presses below. Same aesthetic, I noted dourly. It was like the world before had a hard-on for industrial accidents. Of course, why not use that kind of language? I also now understood why going in with flamethrowers was not such much of an option. This building was a printing house, and a lot of it was full of books, posters, and veritable cornucopia fuel for an out-of-control fire. Such as fire would probably destroy the very things I was sure Red Eye was after. The presses. I had to applaud the stallion. He had power, steel, textiles, and now he was working on bringing back mass publication. As far as I could tell, the only book that had been written and distributed on significant scale since the apocalypse was the Wasteland Survival Guide. Getting this place running would be a major step forward. Those schools he was promising suddenly began to look real. I spotted several more automated turrets covering the main work floor. Damn things ignored the bugs, but I knew that they'd attack if I so much as stepped a hoof into that room. I was in no shape to deal with that many parasprites, much less the damn turrets. The room had a desk with a still functioning terminal. I sat down and began to hack, hoping that I could turn off any other turrets from here. The password, interestingly, was Generous Souls. How are you this fine morning? It has been 202 years, 37 days, 1 hour and 13 minutes since you last logged in. Would you like to check your messages? Wait, this was a hub? But there wasn't anything here. It was a small building. Little more than a print shop. There was nothing here. That made no sense. This wasn't a tower. It was 2 stories tall, and I'd seen enough of the buildings to be pretty sure it didn't have a secret sublevels. There weren't many offices, nothing more than what would be expected from small publishing house. Okay. That's nice, I guess. I don't know. I got up and started looking around. There were posters on the walls of the office and many more visible down on the printing floor below. I had seen most of them before. Everything from the progress posters of the Ministry of Wartime Technology to the image of Twilight Sparkle above the words. Reading is magic. The poster I had seen in the Ponyville library, only without the disfiguring graffiti. I glanced back to the terminal and noticed something else. On the desk was an old album. I opened it and began magically flipping through the pages, all full of collected scraps. All newspaper articles, flyers, public notifications. Most were decayed beyond readability. Of those that weren't, many were familiar. The clinic warning about wartime stress disorder, for example. One of the barely readable newspaper articles caught my eye. Dragon over Hoofington. See? Hoofington. Another reference. The shadow. Oh, wow, that was bad. The shadow bolts led by Rainbow Dash engaged the dragon Brimstone over the skies of Hoofington last weekend as Zebra forces managed their desperate strike into Equestria in the war's 13-year history. All rumors that the Zebras have enlisted the aid of the dragons native to their homeland have been confirmed. Princess Luna vows to expand Equestria's Pegasus. The rest was supposedly continued on another page. The rest of this was
of this one was a picture of Rainbow Dash standing proudly on the head of the fallen monster. It was the sort of image that would have branded Rainbow Dash as a national hero in the minds of ponies for generations. I closed the book and looked back at the screen, and I began to understand. I thought back to the Pinkie Pie poster that first alerted me to the existence of the ministries. If I had been asked, I would have said that the Ministry of Morale had been the first one I had seen. I would have been wrong. The Ministry of the Image was the first one I had seen, only it hadn't gone by that name. It almost never went by that name, at least not externally. In fact, I suspected that Principles of Proper Pony Speech was supposed to be an internal document. I have only reached the middle pretty much just now. The Ministry of the Image didn't seem to do projects of its own. It worked in service to the other ministries. It created their materials, their books, their posters, their flyers, and in one of the cases, even their armor. Every poster associated with one of the other ministries. Hell, probably every time I had seen or heard anything from any of them, I was seeing the Ministry of Image. The Invisible Ministry, that was everywhere. I downloaded Miss Periwinkle's messages into my Pip-Buck for later perusal, then moved on for the more pressing task of dealing with the turrets. I had hoped I could turn off the turrets through the terminal in what I considered the Overmayor's office, but the terminal had allowed me to do one better. It allowed me to reprogram the turrets to wipe out the parasprites. I crouched behind the desk, listening to the barrage of turret fire fill the main floor of the MI hub. The parasprite kill count on my Pip-Buck had shot up to 39 and was only beginning to slow. I realized I would have to hunt down the last ones, the ones in rooms and spaces the turrets didn't cover, but suddenly my job was a lot easier. My Pip-Buck just kept improving. There was a bathroom off to the side of this office. The toilet water made my Pip-Buck freak, and the sink was completely non-functional. A plumber pony had been working on it when the mega spell hit. Her skeleton was still in the room. She had been killed by a chunk that fell from the ceiling. Oh, how wonderful. There wasn't much left of her maintenance uniform, but it was enough to patch the hole in my environmental suit with the aid of Wonder Glue. And there had been several bottles of the latter in the pony's saddle toolbox, along with a wrench and squee. A screwdriver. She had also been a feebly locked medical box with a few healing bandages and a couple extra bobby pins and tin of menthols. I stared at the tin for the longest time, fighting the urge to just go ahead and take one. Just one. It took effort to shut the box, leaving them inside. I relocked it. Never again. I was finally out of those damn shackles. I noticed that most of the other slaves weren't wearing them, so I was fairly certain that I could get away with not wearing them if I had gotten them off myself. I suspected there wasn't any pony here with both the know-how and kindness to have helped me out. I really hated Philadelphia. The turret fires stopped to be on the safe side. I shut them down completely before stepping out of the office. My Pip-Buck said I had 5 to go, and I was still out of ammo. I needed a plan. Moving back the way I had arrived, I tried unlocking the maintenance room I had been kept out of earlier. With any luck, there would be more magical spark packs inside. The door clicked open with the streak of luck had ended. There were no magical spark packs, no weapons or ammo of any kind. Instead, there was a skeleton of a Pegasus pony who had locked himself inside, alone with a now empty bottle of Buck and case of painkillers. From the position of the skeleton and disarray of the room, I suspected he died in severe convulsions, but hopefully unable to feel them. There were a few posters, well preserved on the wall of this room, that I had never seen before. A rather fantastic poster for a Pegasi aerial acrobatics team called them Wonderbolts, whose bright blue uniforms were clearly copied from the darker, militaristic Shadowbolt's design. Or was it the other way around? A framed newspaper article on the wall read, "Wonderbolts, heroic attempt to free zebra captives leaves 4 dead."
This morning, Princess Celestia announced the successful rescue of 17 ponies held captive for 2 weeks by Zebra Gem pirates. The Wonderbolts, Equestria's greatest flyers, volunteered for the secret mission that sent them into Zebra waters. However, success came at a grave cost as 4 members of the elite Pegasi team were killed in the ensuing battle. Thankfully, none of the captives were killed, and only one received serious injury. Throughout this 2-week crisis, the Zebra Caesar repeatedly denounced the actions of the pirates and offered support to Princess Celestia, but he denied permission for Equestria ponies to enter Zebra territories, claiming it would increase existing tensions, and insisting that his army's intelligence indicated that the pirates were operating in international seas. The Zebra Caesar continues to disavow any knowledge of where the pirate ship had anchored. Princess Celestia claims that the Wonderbolt's operation in Zebra territory was the result of a happy miscommunication and apologized personally to the Caesar. The article clearly predated the beginning of the war. One more thing to think about later when I wasn't trying to find a way to disintegrate prayer sprites without a magical energy weapon or incinerate them with fire. The maintenance room included a workbench and a variety of odds and ends, including the Buck's Wonderbolt's lunchbox and a sack filled with some ponies' badly decayed collection. Mostly old copies of Wing Owner magazine. I managed not to look. No, really. Okay, maybe just a Lego little. Pegasus mares are kinda exotic after all. Ooh. Inspiration struck. I dumped out the magazines and set the sack aside, then I emptied the lunchbox of the muck that the food inside had rotted into. I brought the schematic that Ditsy-Doo had given me as a gift. I didn't really expect a homemade mine would be any good against parasprites. But this didn't mean I wouldn't find a useful one later. I was about to put my new mine into a sack when I had another idea. I couldn't set the damn pony-eating bugs on fire inside the building, but half an hour later, I trotted out of the printing house, a sack full of angry parasprites floating next to me. "Oh, Pyrolite," I sing-songed with a smile. Mr. Shiny was most impressed, and I felt myself flush with pride, only for the pride to be swiftly followed by shame and anger that I was letting myself feel happy about slave work, and worse, thankful to one of the slavers for praising me. The reward for my efforts was to have the magical energy gun taken from me, but in return he offered me a set of ragged slave barding. It offered little protection, but little was better than none, and it would help against the chilly nights. The former wearer, according to Mr. Shiny, was no longer able to use it due to decapitation. Whoa. Whoa. Working swiftly did not lead to the rest, but to more work. I was assigned to a scrapyard for the rest of the day. I spent all 10 minutes getting instructions on how to use a gruesome-looking auto axe before the yard foreman, a slave himself, decided he just didn't want such a dangerous tool in the hooves of such a small and weak-looking mare. I pointed out that, as a unicorn, I was more than capable of wielding the metal-cutting saw, regardless of my physical size or strength. In response, he put me to work gathering the bits of scrap that the other workers' slaves, damn it, were slicing off of old passenger wagons and other sizable metal artifacts of the past. I trudged into the ear-splitting din of the scrapyard. Dozens of ponies were pitting those spinning magically edged blades against metal. At least a dozen more were on scrap collection duty. I looked up to see the slaves' guards staring down at us, armed with battle saddles or assault carbines, keeping well out of the range of the auto axes. A daring unicorn could try to float one up to them, but she would be gunned down before she could kill more than one. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the gorgeous yellow and green plumage of Pyrolite as she circled, a Wonderbolt's lunchbox clutched in her talons before soaring out of sight. Smiling to myself a little, despite my dreary situation, I got to work. Enslaved ponies crying out under the whips of slavers pulled wagons piled with scavenged metal into steel yard for slicing. I was shocked when several ponies trudged wearily into the scrapyard, pulling a wagon laden with massive gear-shaped steel door from a stable. My work was much easier than theirs thanks to my magic, and it afforded me the chance to speak with the other slaves. They were not a chatty bunch, quick to remind me that too much talk made the slavers nervous, and was a quick way to get your tongue cut out. But I was able to glean a few tidbits, which convinced me that the only places likely to find either the schematics of Red Eye's engine or Red Eye's research into bypass spells were the
Alpha Omega Hotel, or the Ministry of Morale Hub. The Alpha Omega was being used for special housing for the lower floors. This meant housing for pit fighters, being on the fast track to brutal death at the hooves of their slaves. Didn't come without compensations. A much nicer place to bed down, shorter work hours, and if rumors were true, access to a still, who or what was housed in the upper floors was apparently a closely guarded secret. The only other place to get booze in all of Philadelphia, one of the slaves claimed as she let her audio axe cool down before going again at a 3-yard long section of what had once been a stable wall, is the Romer Bar, a slaver hangout on to other side of the wall. A shame, as I decided that I could definitely use some apple whiskey. Stern hates the stuff. Says booze makes slavers stupid and she ain't got us used for stupid. Wow. The slave's mare with a really strange accent chomped down on the bit of an auto axe, kicking it on again, and started cutting. I hung around long enough to bundle the first chunks cut from the wall and floated them back to the waiting bins. Then I moved on. From the ponies willing to talk everything about the comically barn-shaped mom building, Ministry of Magic, was a mystery save that there was always a Pinkie Pie balloon anchored there, that Stern roosted in the upper tower, and that Red Eye himself had a private chamber somewhere within. I found myself speaking with another of the slaves, this time a unicorn buck with a cancerous eye and only 3 legs, the result not of an accident or cruelty, but a birth defect from having been born to a tribe who had lived too close to Philadelphia Crater before the wall. Our conversation was interrupted when one by one the slaves paused their work to look up into the sky of black clouds. Several pointed, many whispered, "Aw, crud, is it the Enclave?" I turned my own head upwards, trying to spot the cause of the commotion. It wasn't hard to spot. Oh shoot, wait, Red Eye. Hard to spot. A sky chariot was flying overhead, pulled by 2 griffins. Surrounding it was a wing of alicorns. Well, the deformed buck muttered, looks like Red Eye's here. Uh-oh. I stood up in the same lot where I had stood yesterday. The blood of the slaver executed by Stern still stained the ground. All around me, other slaves had gathered, pressing close. The rooftops around us were lined with griffins in talon armor. Stern took her favorite spot and stared out over us. Her anti-machine rifle was slung to her back, but I remembered the speed of her draw. The speakers fell silent, marched the prayer sprites, cutting off in mid-song. A couple of the ponies beside me whinnied nervously. I spotted Blood and Daff in the crowd. Blood looked bored, inspecting her hoof. Daff looked grim. And then I finally saw him, Red Eye. Flanked by an escort of alicorns, the pony whom I had come to blame for a great deal of the equestrian wasteland's wrongness walked up from a ramp on the right side of the building where Stern was perched. Red Eye was strong, able-bodied earth pony stallion with a crimson coat and a few light scars around a blank flank, where his cutie mark should have been. He had a jet black mane and tail which were practically groomed, and he wore a black cape that was slung to droop off his right side. I could only see the left side of his body, clearly as he strode towards the center of the roof, but his left eye was distinctly blue. I wasn't sure what I had been expecting. Hell, I think I had been expecting an alicorn monster the size of Pinkie Pie's balloon, twisted and evil, radiating explosions of power, or something equally as absurd. Red Eye was just a pony. I could end all this now. I just need something big and heavy. I could float it over his head and drop it. Even if the griffin spotted me, even if Stern gunned me down, I could accept that just as long as I could take him with me. One of the alicorns looked out over the crowd, her eyes quickly finding me. She spread her wings and took to the air, keeping a protective watch. Damn it, they remembered, and they weren't going to let me pull the same trick twice. I realized with a chill that the alicorns knew I was here, and so did their goddess, which I suspected meant Red Eye did too. This was a stupid plan. In the middle of the roof was a strip of railing which had once held a sign. Red-Eye trod up to it, the other two alicorns taking positions on either side of him. He turned towards us, putting his forehooves up spread out on the railings. As he stared down, I gasped, my world suddenly lurching out from under my hooves. Workers, welcome, and thank you for joining me. Red-Eye was even more charismatic in person, his words oily, smooth, and devilishly persuasive, but I was barely hearing them. My gaze transfixed on the red glow that came out of the metal sheath around what should have been his right eye socket. A cyber pony? Red-Eye was a cyber pony? I was staring in the face of a level of technological advancement that soared way beyond terminals and sprite bots. Red-Eye had cybernetic implants? How? Where did he get them? When did that sort of technology even become possible? My gaze traveled down his body, searching for other signs of augmentation, and locked on his right foreleg. Red-Eye was wearing a pip buck. Red-Eye was a stable dweller. That's not entirely possible. He could have just literally stole it from some other pony, I guess. Literally. Talk to Dr. Slaughter. It sounds like they removed him a lot. I've demanded a lot from you in the name of the future, Red-Eye was saying as I shook myself out of my utter stupor. The Crimson Cyber Augmented Stallion even wore his pip buck on his right foreleg, which was uncommon, just like me. But I would not call for anything from you that I would not demand for myself, Red-Eye claimed, looking over us. The red beam of that targeting eye flashed as it swept over me. As you can see, I was gifted through no merit of my own with a privileged upbringing that the good ponies of our equestrian wasteland could only dream of. I lived in a stable where such luxuries as safety, food, and clean water were taken for granted. Our water talisman alone could have given life-sustaining nourishment to thousands, but was instead being used for frivolous joys like our atrium's fountain. He frowned, shaking his head. Observe my eye. My stable offered medical and technological advancements far in excess of even pre-war civilization. Ponies in the highest ranks of stable tech conspired to make my stable an experiment in rulership through the Earth Pony way. Celestial? Oh, wow, that's weird. Stable 2 had always known a unicorn overmare. I tried to imagine a stable under Earth Pony rule and driven by the same push for progress, an industry that had dominated the thinking of Ministry of Technology. What could they accomplish over 200 years of isolation? Well, cybernetic implants for one. I realized I had lost track of Red-Eye's speech and chided myself for not paying closer attention. Now that he was actually right in front of me, but I couldn't help the oozing sense that I was looking into the dark and supremely fucked up mirror. Saw the equestrian wasteland for what it was, but more than that, I saw what it should be and what it could be. Again, that night, for the first time, the goddess whispered to me. I found myself resisting a face of the idea that Alicorn Goddess was speaking to Red-Eye, or at least that he could be under that impression, made a lot more sense. I knew a pony in Stable 2 had sometimes pick up the stable broadcast through a metal work in his jaw. Celestia only knew that all that wetware in Red-Eye's head was capable of receiving. By intentional design, or otherwise, the goddess communicated telepathically with the Alicorns. Was she communicating with him too, or was he just picking up stray signals? Preacher had suggested to Velvet Remedy that Red-Eye was getting garbled messages, and the first thing that she showed me was how wrong the stable's teaching were. How actually repulsive our beliefs in Earth Pony supremacy. No breed of pony is greater than another. We are all slaves to the equestrian wasteland, and it is only through our work that we can be free. As Red-Eye talked, I remember the twisted versions of stories and history that I had seen in Stable 24, even the tale of the Mare and the Moon, the tale of Princess Luna's 1,000-year fall to madness as Nightmare Moon, a madness she had been rescued from, by the group of friends who Luna had subsequently chosen to be the mayors of her ministries, had been altered into the tale of a fallen prince. I could only guess if this is what Stable Tech had done to ensure a male-dominated experiment in that stable, what the teachings in Red Eye's stable would have been. But that work is worthless and unless it is shared, until we are all free. None of us are truly free, nor do we deserve to be. Red Eye glanced away, looking strangely ashamed. Then, with a fierceness I had expected, he told us, and that is why my stable was the first to be dismantled, its doors and supports torn out and melted down, its concrete walls and floors cut apart to make the foundation stones of the cathedral, the fortress we are building on the site of my former house, to be the new capital of our new Equestria and the new home of our living goddess. I reeled. The ponies of my home were the first to join the army of the Children of Unity, or in the case of many, they became the first workers in these very yards, where you work today. I saw the bounty of our stable shared, the water talisman given in struggling town, which now knows the joy of clean and pure water. I focused the great minds of our best science ponies towards the task of the coming new age. The only thing that remains of my home is the cloak I wear as a reminder, Red Eye claimed, smiling down at us. Everything I have ever had I have given, as you do today. His eyes, both mechanical and natural, looked over the ponies in the crowd. His voice was paternal, and I could not be prouder of all of you. He glanced back to Stern. The black-colored griffin nodded her white-feathered head, but her beak twisted in a scowl of dislike the moment he turned away. The alicorn in the air continued to circle, keeping her eyes out for unidentified floating objects. Looking to us again, bathing us in his smile beneath the slate-colored clouds, Red Eye announced, and so I come bringing the gift of respite. Tomorrow shall be a day of rest, none shall labor. Furthermore, the bounty of the Romer Bar stills will be made freely available to you, for those who wish to taste the finest horse whiskey Philadelphia has to offer. The words of the leader of our slavers was met with clapping applause and shouts of joy. It was insanity! The gratitude of the crowd made as much sense as our oatmeal. I looked around and found few ponies who were not celebrating. One of them was Daff, although Blood seemed to be cheering for the both of them. Red Eye grinned kindly and then waved his hoof for quiet. The roars and stomping died away uneasily, as if strangled. And I have also arranged for entertainment, 2 full events in the pit, with seating for every pony to enjoy. He looked down over us. That is, of course, if I can get some volunteers. The quiet became a hard silence. The slave ponies looked to each other. And we have one, Red Eye announced as he looked into the crowd. Any more? I looked around to see which pony had volunteered for the blood sport. Daff was holding up a hoof. Blood was staring at him in shock. Then slowly, in a show of companionship that I thought beyond the vicious ex-raider mare, Blood stood next to the piss-colored stallion and raised her own hoof, lowering her head to sigh. "Fuck you, Daffodil," she muttered. "I hate you so much." Red Eye's voice counted on. "That's 2. Everything went to hell about an hour after Red Eye's speech. I was making my way back towards the bumper plow structure when a mare's scream jolted me into a run. The scream was coming from inside a building whose decaying paint job proclaimed Philadelphia Fun Farm Maze in a house of wacky reflections. The mare screamed again, and I charged inside. The interior of the building was dark and dusty, the air filled with motes, the floor covered in shattered glass. I levitated myself a little as I moved, not wanting to cut my hooves. The place was a maze, just as advertised, but very few of the mere frames held anything more than a few nasty shards jutting against their backboards. Old graffiti suggested that a raider band had once used the place for fun of their own design. "No, get off me," the mayor cried out. I skidded to a stop as I recognized the voice. It was Blood. I heard laughter and a buck's voice, husky and cruel. Now why shouldn't you have some fun tonight? It's only right seeing that you're going to die in the pit tomorrow. Oh boy, how fun! I can't wait to read this. I heard a grunt that sounded like death and the two sounded wound, impact, and pony flesh. Oh great. I trotted forward until I caught the scene reflecting remain of a third shattered mirror. 2 slave master ponies and blood pressed against the wall. Oh, how fun! Uh-huh. Oh, wow, they hurt her pretty good with that mirror and glass. Clone lever action shotgun. Lever action shotgun! Holy cow. Corner almost identical to the first firearm. Never seen it. Hold on, I have to get this music fixed. My heart flared with rage. I felt my nervous ignite. A pony in my head tried to remind me that I could start killing slavers. Hold on. I want to change this music. Time to go back to the Mojave. A pony in my head reminded me that I couldn't start killing slavers, that my only chance to get it at Red Eye required keeping a low profile until I could get close, that I still had a lot of work to do. That I really didn't want to save that sadistic bitch and a rapist buck friend anyway. What the hell was I doing, risking my life, risking everything for them? And absolutely none of that mattered, as the slavers learned when the glare from my horn was matched by the light that flooded over hundreds of deeply sharp shards of mirrored glass. The slaver pony with a sawed-off shotgun managed to get a shot off before the room became a Cuisinart. What? I have no clue what that word is. Missed. The particularly bloody murder of 5 slavers was not going unnoticed. The one shot fired had drawn attention, and now I was running through the maze trying desperately to figure my way out while slaver guards in heavy barding and battle saddles gave chase. I'd left Blood and Daff alive and in shock, the corridor decorated with a scene so bloody it would have made raiders envious. I had snatched up the lever-action shotgun and the mare's rifle, but I hadn't had time to search the remains. I had only the ammo currently in my firearms. According to my eyes for a sparkle, that wasn't much. 2 shots in the shotgun, 12 in the rifle. Red marks on my EFS compass told me that 2 more guards were ahead of me. They undoubtedly had the building surrounded outside. My only hope was to get out of here and change terrain before there was enough time for more than the closest slavers' forces to be brought to bear. I wished I'd chosen to bring the stealth buck after all. The red marks moved, weaving through the maze, drawn closer. I crouched down, hiding the shotgun ready. The moment. Also, I just want to say this went from like a 1 to a 10 real quickly over some freaking glass, okay? It got a little intense. The moment the first guard's head appeared in the corridor, I slid into his sats and opened fire. The slaver guard went down hard, bleeding from a hole torn in her throat. The second was right behind her. I put the only other shot I had into her face, centered on her left eye. Then I discarded the lever-action shotgun and galloped ahead. I heard shouts and the galloping sounds of armor-shod hooves on shattered glass behind me. Ahead I spotted an open doorway, twilight pouring in around the slaver pony positions there. She was a unicorn and was floating a riot shield in front of her. She finished setting up a chain gun at the entrance. Fuck. I dove into another passage and back towards a dead end as I weighed my options. The slavers behind me were getting closer. I bumped into the mirror behind me, a splash of cold washing over my body from the touch. I turned looking into the only fully intact mirror and the hiss of wacky reflections and froze. Staring back at me was me, but not me. The little pip staring back at me was wearing cobbled together raider armor. She was shot to hell, dying, her body giving out as she glared at me in swiftly deteriorating battle stance, her gaze daring me to make another move. I shrank back in armor, turned, and ran right into the path of the chain gun. I would have bloody giblets if my sudden appearance hadn't completely surprised the unicorn mare. The moment it took her to recover was just enough for me to telekinetically grab the gun and spin it around, opening fire. The riot shield was sorely insufficient to its rather awesome firepower. I paused a moment in futile attempt to pull the chain gun off its mounting and take it with me, then just dashed out the door. A sniper in one of Pinkie Pie balloons took a shot. The bullet whizzed past me, tearing into a ruined popcorn cart. I started weaving, making myself a difficult target as possible. Serpentine! Serpentine! Zigzag! I needed someplace safe, preferably someplace high. It was time to call calamity. This whole plan was a bust. A griffin swooped overhead, strafing at me with a submachine gun. I changed course, hoping I wasn't being corralled. I was. The path in front of me of dead ended in a wrought iron fence that surrounded the amusement park. They had maneuvered me into a trap. At least, that was their intention. As I galloped past an overturned confectionery stand, Pinkie Pies, pink pies! Magically scooped up a dozen scattered pie tins, floating them ahead of me. I levitated them each higher than the last, forming stepping stairs, wrapping myself with levitation field to virtually negate my own weight. I ran up the stairway of pie tins and leapt over the fence. The Pinkie Pie balloon sniper fired again, putting a hole through the last tin just as my hoof left it. The griffin turned and continued the chase, but at least for the moment, I had reduced my opponents to 2. I dove rolling and brought up my targeting spell, unleashing half the bullets from the rifle into the griffin's armored underbelly as she flew over me. Talon armor turned out to be very good. She was not dead, and not even bloodied, but the impacts knocked the wind from her, driving her to the land roughly. I rolled back to my hooves as another sniper shot struck the ground right where my head had been. I needed to get out from under the sniper pony. She was no calamity, but she was frighteningly good shot, and it would only take 1 hit. I ran for the nearest intact building, firing the last of my bullets into the 2 guard ponies standing. Watch in front of it, I tossed the rifle telekinetically, swooping up one of the guards' automatic pistols as a replacement, and burst through the front doors of the Alpha Omega Hotel. The hotel, which had once hosted the Summer Sun celebration, had seen better centuries. The area of ruined opulence clung to the interior like its faded and peeling wallpaper. The air was dingy and filled with little motes of dust and decay. Small rains of plaster occasionally fell from the cracks in the ceiling. The hotel was home to the ponies, who knew they were on a glorified death row. Ponies sat along the bar, drinking their night away, knowing that tomorrow most of them would be slaughtered in bloody spectacle for the amusement of the crowds. Crowds full of fellow slaves who could somehow look into the pit and not see themselves, who could look and actually cheer. My heart felt sick as I walked quickly through the small throng of silent slave ponies. They glanced my way briefly, if at all. They didn't care. Why should they? We were apparently incapable of caring about each other. I brushed dampness from my eyes and looked for the stairs. If I could make it to the roof, I could call calamity and get the hell out of here. I made my way up to the Alpha Omega hooves plotting on rotting carpet. My EFS was picking up a host of friendly marks, but no sign of any pony or griffin who was hostile. I passed a painting of Celestia standing gracefully in what looked like a grand ballroom. A kind smile on her face, surrounded by colorful ponies in the fever of a party. The summer sun celebration in full swing. The painting was graying from age and dust. Goddesses, this is a depressing place, I muttered, almost wishing for more guards to come charging up behind me. If only so, the adrenaline would shield me from the blanket of despair that was beginning to smother me. Why weren't they? I should have all of Stern's armies on my tail by now. It's not like that sniper didn't see where I went. Maybe they considered me trapped. But even then, I can't imagine they would just sit back and let me make a home in here. Why weren't they coming in? I found the next flight of stairs and started up. I was just clearing the top when all the friendly lights on my EFS started turning red. I was picking up dozens of hostiles now, far too many. The lights blurred together, making it impossible to identify the positions of individual opponents. I floated up automatic pistol and crouched low, hoping I could sneak past more of them. Hello, folks joining. Hello. The door opened not by my horn or hoof, but by the telekinetic pull of a unicorn pony on the other side. I immediately slid into Sats, targeting the Colt before he even saw me, and froze again. A Colt! The child who was floating a single shotgun next to him inexpertly wasn't even old enough to have a cutie mark. Beyond him, I saw other children, young fillies and colts, all looking well-nourished, well-cared for, and annoyingly well-armed. Oh my god, they armed the kids. The room itself was brightly lit and recently painted in cheery colors. The worst of the cracks had been repaired, I suspected by magic, and the air was considerably cleaner, unlike every other building used by either slavers or slaves. The floor had been restored to a fair reflection of its former glory. My eyes widened further as I spotted what was clearly a schoolroom through the doorway opposite this one. Red Eye's words echoed through my head. Our nation's young ones are and have always been my highest priority. All that we sacrifice, we do for them, to give them a better place. The scene before my eyes was simultaneously wonderful and horrifying. Young children ripped from homes of their families and given to the care of loving, approved mares and stallions. Their real families were dying in the city below, trapped and enslaved behind the walls. Well, they themselves were being given the best possible care, probably the best possible life in the Equestrian wasteland. And they were being taught education, indoctrination. Of course they loved him. They would be ready to kill for him. Red Eye was building schools, and he was about to have the ability to print his own textbooks. This scene was going to be repeated everywhere. I couldn't do it. I killed Sats. I couldn't sneak past all of them, and I just couldn't fight them. Hey, the Colt called down the stairs. She's up here. I turned to flee, only to see a midnight blue alicorn moving silently up the stairs towards me. I would have face-hoofed if I had been given the chance. I had actually wondered why no one was coming in after me. By the goddesses, how could I have forgotten some of these monsters can turn invisible? The alicorn's horn was glowing. A metal apple floated towards me. The pin pulled. The alicorn would survive, but even if I did, the Colt next to me would not. If there was time, I might have stopped to wonder why the alicorn would threaten a child that they were so clearly precious to Red Eye, but there was no time. Instinctively, I lashed out with my magic, trying to knock the grenade away. I realized my mistake as the world started to slip away from me. The last thing I saw in this world was the alicorn drop the illusion that surrounded the memory orb. They remembered, they learned, and I had the ability, and I had been bested by my own trick. Everything shot into almost brutal sharpness. Colors were more colorful, the lines around objects almost vibrant. The sunlight was sunnier than I had ever imagined it could be, bright and warm and glorious beyond belief. I could smell the bush I was standing behind, the flowers nearby, the grass. I could smell the two ponies I was watching. The sweat on Applejack would have made me stir in recently wounded places if this had been my own body. It was not. However, a fact of which I was hyper-aware. I could feel a slight burning on my left forehoof, as if I'd recently touched a hot stove. I had an itch on my cheek, an odd pain in my hind legs that was barely noticeable, a tingle along my back. There was a familiar and delicious peppermint taste on my tongue. Oh no. With dawning horror, I realized that the pony host was high on menthols. Oh please no, I can't take it. The effects were nowhere near as pronounced. I was getting the heightened perception, but none of the other effects. Still, it was too comfortable, too alluring. Howdy, Fluttershy, Applejack said, greeting her friend with a smile as the yellow Pegasus landed gently on the grass as if worried about hurting her. Hello, Applejack, the Pegasus said meekly. So what brings you to these parts? Well, the shy Pegasus looked down, crossing one leg over the other. That is... Applejack rolled her eyes. Good gravy, girl. Spit it out already. Is something wrong? The Pegasus took a deep breath and then said in a rush, Are you looking for a close mare friend? Because if you are, we could, She paused, all too obvious, having no clue what good mare friends did in the privacy of their own beds. My host stifled a giggle as Applejack's eyes went wide. Then she scowled, trotting past the deeply blushing Pegasus to slam her head repeatedly against a tree. When she finished, she turned to Fluttershy. Alright, that's enough. What is it with my friends hating on me, pretending I'm a filly fooler? Y'all know better, and y'all are straight. She took a step forward. Fluttershy eeped and took one back. Fluttershy, I know you, so be straight with me. The pun was probably not intended. Dude, this is crazy. It's just ship. The sailing never ends. Ships are always coming in, and they're always leaving. Well, did Rainbow Dash put you up to this? Applejack demanded. Oh, Fluttershy squeaked, but shook her head. No. Applejack looked dubious. So you're saying you just thought this all up on your own lonesome? Fluttershy shook her head. So Rainbow Dash did put you up to it? No, she insisted softly. My host began to move silently, creeping out from behind the bush. But some pony did? Applejack sussed out. Her yellow friend nodded. Who? My host had moved up behind Applejack so quickly and stealthily, even I hadn't seen it happen. Still, it bewildered me that it could be standing this close to any of the ponies seemed to notice us. We were invisible. It certainly wouldn't be the first time I'd found myself in a magically hidden being who was spying on the ministry mares, but I was clearly in an earth pony. Applejack turned around only to find herself nose to nose with my host. Spooked, she jumped away so fast she toppled onto her back. Pinkie Pie! Hiya, I felt my muzzle say, hearing the words in high-pitched but pretty voice. Aw, you caught me. What in tarnation, The blonde-maned orange pony stopped, then faced her while still lying on her back, in a mostly undignified position. This has all been one of your and Rainbow Jack's practical jokes, ain't it? Yep, I heard myself say happily as they began to bounce. Bounce? Applejack pulled herself back on her hoof, staring at me and my host crossly. Care if I ask why? Well, you've been totally a mopey pony since the funeral. Of course I have, Applejack shot. I buried my brother. And you've been working really, really hard, Pinkie Pie plowed on. And you haven't been getting out or going to parties or seeing friends and haven't been talked to in a bucking like forever, Applejack huffed. How would you know if She stopped abruptly, realizing just how stupid a question that was considering who she was asking. Fluttershy had slipped back a ways, almost hiding. And you're all worked up and stressed and you're gonna burn yourself out if you aren't careful. And you really need to get... Oh, wow. Saucy. Dang, Pinkie Pie just knows what to say. Applejack hung her head. Pinkie Pie was incorrigibly at best. This ain't gonna end until I get myself a buck friend, is it? Nope, Pinkie Pie announced bouncily. As the hell could she bounce on all hooves like that? I was inside her and I still couldn't figure it out. Well, would it help I said there is a buck I've had my eye on? Pinkie Pie stopped bouncing and stared off into space. The itch on the side of her cheek migrated to her chin. She looked back to Applejack. Yup, that's the truth. But itchy chin means you haven't told me yet. You gotta talk to him. Applejack sighed. And if I do this nonsense stops? I watched the world rock as Pinkie Pie nodded enthusiastically. My host started chanting, do it, do it, do it, rambunctiously as she bounced in circles around Applejack. Fine, Applejack reached out a hoof and stopped Pinkie Pie. On one condition. What? Y'all got to swear, Applejack turned to look at Fluttershy, both of ya, that Rainbow Dash don't hear a word of this. But, Pinkie Pie started, if Rainbow Dash doesn't know, how will she know that it's time to stop the prank, silly? I can deal with it from Rainbow, Applejack said sternly. At least now that I know where it's coming from. But this possible buck friend of mine, well, he's just kind of funny name, and I think Rainbow might not be able to keep herself from messing things up. Well, that came out badly. Applejack seemed to realize it too. Look, I'll tell him myself when I'm ready. Not before. She looked at her two friends. Now y'all Pinkie Pie swear it. Pinkie Pie swear? My host's reaction was immediate. I struggled to keep track of her odd motions, which ended with sticking a hoof in my eye, that accompanied by a little slingshot that Pinkie Pie and Fluttershy managed to do in perfect synchronicity. Cross my heart and hope to fly, stick a cupcake in my eye. Applejack breathed a sigh of relief. The three friends began to walk, my host falling slowly behind. Oh, there it is again. Applejack and Fluttershy both stopped, looking back. There, what is? Burning Hoof Beans Little Pip's watching me. Pinkie Pie blurted out impossibly. Or will be watching me. I'm not sure yet. She bounced after her friends. Who's Little Pip? Bro, what? Pinkie Pie has the ability to, like, be shot into the future? That's absolutely wild. That is wild. Dang, Mama Murphy. The furnace pits, Stern suggested, glaring at me. I was bound and shackled to the floor. And as if that was not enough, two green-coated alicorns stood frozen beside me, trapping me inside a shield. Not only had I done most of the things that Stern considered a death sentence, I had done them with aggressive results. I had still failed, but she took the time to name each slaver I managed to kill before my inevitable capture. No, said Red-Eye, eliciting a look of shock and displeasure from the griffin. The cybernetically augmented stallion walked up to face me. I'm feeling particularly generous today. No, said Red-Eye, eliciting a look. Oh, yeah, I already read that. I doubted I would much care for his definition of generosity, but the horrific tale of a pony being devoured from inside by an ever-growing number of parasprites left me thankful all the same. Sounds like an AU we read, as I mentioned earlier. Sounds very familiar. Addressing me directly, Red Eyes asked, "Do you think I'm a monster?" I answered, "Yes." He shrugged, "Because of course I am, and you, Stable Dweller, can probably see it more clearly than most, because you and I are a lot alike. Are we not?" "Not even slightly," I hissed, lying through my teeth. Red-Eye chuckled, "I've heard of your exploits. I think we are more the same than you would like. You've just had it easy so far." Enraged, I spat, "Easy? You think what I've been through out here has been easy?" Red-Eye gave me an almost fatherly smile. "The fact that you can still stand there and judge me tells me so. You have had hardships, I am sure, but you've never been forced to give up your principles for the greater good, to sacrifice yourself and become a monster because it was the right thing to do." Oh, how I disagreed. "You couldn't do it even to escape," he noted, "for which, by the way, I am very grateful. Had you harmed a hair on even one of those children," he paused, then simply said, "Thank you." Red-Eye turned towards Stern. His cape fell into a view. A rough rectangle made the stable security barding. The number 101 was visible in yellow against the black cloth. "I'm sorry, what? Fallout 3 confirmed? Fallout 3 confirmed? Take her back downstairs and keep her under shield. Tomorrow, she fights in the pit." Lined up in the darkness with 5 other ponies, I spent an hour rummaging through the recorded messages of Miss Periwinkle. Most were worthless, but one was actually from a ministry mayor, and not the one I had been expecting. "Dear Miss Periwinkle," the voice began, "I found it very odd to hear an audio message addressed like it was a letter. It was a pleasure to hear from you again. The new posters from the libraries are absolutely perfect. I hope it will not be a burden to have 200 produced by next week. I also have a more delicate matter to ask you about. Let me preface this by saying that for decades now, ever since she taught me her gem-finding spell, Rarity and I have gotten together at irregular intervals to swap magical spells. I must admit, and please believe I do not say this to brag, but it has been a long time since she brought anything that I hadn't already learned myself. This is until 3 days ago. I was thrilled to see that she had learned a trick I had never seen before. She had enchanted a small mirror to look in it. You would see your reflection just as with any mirror, but if you touched it or focused your magic on it, then a spell within the mirror took... Well, the way she put it in the mirror took a picture of your soul. Then a second enchantment allowed the mirror to show that image. As Rarity told me, the mirror could show you what you looked like on the outside, or on the inside. Okay, beautiful. It's an X-ray. I must admit, I wasn't ready for what I saw, and I'm still not sure about it. but that's personal. Rather, I wanted to ask you if you could give me any clues as to where Rarity may have learned enchantments like that. I know Rarity would refashion any magical spell until it customized to her wishes, but honestly, I've been scouring my books, but I've found nothing that even remotely resembles these spells. I know you have worked closely with her the last few months, so I hoped you would have an idea. Also, it's hardly worth mentioning, but the spell felt cold. Not like Rarity's spell at all. Rarity has been dabbling in necromancy. That's my girl. That's my tax evader. Get him, Rarity. Also, it's hardly worth mentioning that the spell felt cold. Not like Rarity's. I already read that. Anyways, this is mostly just a matter of rampant curiosity, and I ask that you please not mention this to her. But if you have any idea, I really would appreciate if you let me know. Your friend, Twilight Sparkle. I deleted the message from my pitbook, but kept that one. I sat in silent darkness, the 5 other marked souls, and waited. Uh-oh. Someone's been hitting them old zebra books. The noise outside told me that seething around the area was quickly filling. I heard Stern, her voice magnified over the speaker, welcoming every pony. Ooh. Dang. Her voice magnified was speaking to every pony of the bloody show. I heard hooves pounding bleachers in applause. My face twisted in disgust. How good they? This was sick. Earlier slave master pony had attached a sheet to my flank covering my cutie mark. She had snarled and whispered to me her fondest desires that my suffering to be deep and excruciating and very slow. She had been known one of the RPest slavers. The only reason I survived being outnumbered was because Stern was watching, but she still got away with covering the bottom side of the sheet with some sort of stinging powder that was making it hard for me to concentrate. I was number 3. Blood and Death were numbers 1 and 2, respectively. They sat closest to the gate looking at the arena, a large plot of broken cement underneath a cage from which several barrels were suspended. I could see pressure plates set up like mines all over. Neither of them had spoken to me, going out of their way to ignore my existence. I couldn't decide whether to be hurt or relieved. Used to be an ice skating rink, the blue-colored buck with number 4 on his flank said conventionally. Apparently, the owner of the fun farm had a thing for ice skating, just to be thankful that Red-Eye removed the water talisman and put it to better use. These fights are brutal enough without having to do them on ice. I don't know, like 18,000? I tried to imagine that and just couldn't. Outside, the crowds began to chant from the first fight. Their hoof stomps falling into unity would make the goddess proud. Part of me wanted to hurt them, and these were the ponies I was trying to save. Hey, consider yourself lucky, the blue buck joked, yes. Joked is definitely the word joked. Being number 3 ain't bad. Has any pony told you how these things work? I shook my head. The roar outside rose to a crescendo. There was a loud buzz, then a clanging sound as the gate was levitated up by a unicorn no pony could see. Something like that, I don't remember. Round 1, fight! Round 1, Stern's voice boomed. From the red gate, all the way from the rock farms, we can see Cinderblock. This is the second event, so you know he's got some hooves on him. And from the black gate, she's tough, she's mean, she's a raider with a body count higher than the spikes in her hair. It's Blood! Blood got up looking dejectedly at the open gate for a moment, then held her head up and trotted out, putting on a brave face that I didn't believe even a little bit. You see, number 4 was telling me there were 2 gates. We're black gate. Each gate has 6 fighters randomly numbered. If you survive your first round, you will be pitted against the next opponent from the red gate. Events last until all opponents from one gate are dead. The survivors from the other gate fight in the next event. I looked at Blood and winced. So basically, it sucks to be number 1. I couldn't believe I was feeling sympathy for the vile raider mare. Well, let's give and take, number 4 said. I looked at him quizzically. I mean, true, if you're a high enough number, it's possible you won't have to fight at all, and any pony who survives 6 events is set free. Doesn't matter if he actually fought or not. I got the feeling that number 4 had made it through the at least one event just that way. You even get a spot in Red Eye's army, he added enthusiastically. I considered pointing out to him the sort of position Red Eye would likely appoint him if he never won a fight, but I kept my muzzle shut. The sudden roar of the crowd snapped and my attention back to her arena. Blood was down, soaking in a pool of her own. Well, Blood, Cinderblock, an athletic-looking light gray buck, was rearing his hooves in victory. The fight had lasted seconds. My heart sank. What was the benefit of being first again? I asked Dolly. Number 4 leaned close, apparently unable to comprehend personal space. Well, you see those barrels, and you see those plates? I nodded each. Step on a plate, the barrel above drops, now the barrels are full of nasty stuff, usually radioactive goo, but sometimes it's something worse. I heard they once had one filled with tainted ooze. I shuddered looking at the cage that had been constructed over the arena and barrels hanging from it. A few griffins flew high above, watching the show with binoculars or through rifle scopes. My eyes caught a swinging door built into a cage, kept closed by a simple padlock.
Round 2, Stern called out. Fight!
Mortal Kombat.
From the Black Gate, we have Daffodil! The crowd broke into snickers and chortles as Daff got up and stepped out from the arena. He took one look at the bloody corpse of his companion and then locked Cinderblock with the hard stare that I could almost feel from behind him. Daffodil charged at the light gray pony. Cinderblock ran, not towards him, but towards one of the pressure plates. The barrel above didn't exactly drop. Rather, as the gray pony raced across the plate, the underside of the barrel swung open and dozen mines rained down, hitting the ground and bouncing in all directions. Daff changed direction with deftness I would not have expected. The mines were rigged for a fast detonation, only beeping once before exploding in a flash of smoke and shrapnel. Cinderblock had almost been fast enough, but his hind legs were peppered and torn as he was flung forward. He was still struggling to get back on his bleeding legs when Daff reached him. I knew how hard those hooves hit, but seeing this, I suspected that Daff had held back when he bucked the living heck out of me, even with his last low blow. The crowd beat their hooves and cried out for more. Daff pummeled the other buck, breaking his legs, then every other bone he could before killing him. I tasted bile. Mine's number 4 mused. Well, that was a new one. I shot him a dark look. Hey, like I was saying, those barrels have nasty things, but they also always have a weapon or two in them. So if you're first, you get your pick of the prizes, and if you go last, well, you go up against an opponent with the choice of weapons and an arena filled with ooze and goddesses knows what else. And all you have are your hooves. Fighting last sucks. Round 3, Stern finally announced after Daff had stopped brutalizing Cinderblock and started just beating a dead pony. From the Black Gate, we still have Daffodil. Are you surprised and entertaining the first performance? I don't think any of you ponies are snickering at his name now, are you? The crowd applauded the crimson-splattered buck whose angry flower cutie mark was now partially visible behind his number 2 patch, which was sagging and wet with Cinderblock's lifeblood. And now, the one I know you've all been waiting for. The crowd hushed with gleeful anticipation. From the Red Gate, she's demonic, she's exotic, and she has never lost a fight. Give it up for the champion, 4 events running, Zenith! My first thought struck in the brain at the word exotic was a Pegasus mare. The idea of facing a flying opponent in this arena was terrifying, and if she was as good as advertised, I would be facing her as soon as she finished killing Daff. The Red Gate opened and Zenith stepped out into the arena to absolutely thunderous, overwhelming applause. From her grim expression, she wasn't enjoying it one bit. From the look she gave Daff, she was going to kill him. She knew it, and it would brought her no pleasure at all.
From her lack of wings, she wasn't a Pegasus. From her stripes, she wasn't even a pony. She was a zebra. Footnote level up. New perk, cooler under fire. You regenerate action points faster. How much faster? You guessed it, 20% faster. And 20% cooler. Oh my gosh. That was an absolutely wild card. We were here for so long, I thought we were never going to reach the end. Let's see. Okay, that's definitely shorter. So next time I'll probably read... Oh yeah, I read 30,000 words today. Nice. 1, 2, 3. Well, we might read at least 2 chapters. 28, 29. So this could be tomorrow, this could be the next day. We might do something like that. But then again, that was 18,000 words. This would be a long day. Friday would be sucky so much. Oh man. But yeah, okay. I think that's what I might plan on doing. I am going to go start up another Dead Space stream for folks if you guys want to go watch that, because I want to get back to playing that. And I was having fun with that earlier. I just wanted to take a break before I threw my vocals out for the day. But yeah, you know, thanks for watching the Fallout Equestria stream, folks, if you managed to stick around long enough. And I will catch you in the next one, where our characters will fight to the death.